This is the Above Average Podcast, and you are listening because you want an above average life. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Above Average Podcast, the podcast where we talk to above average people about their above average lives. Now, my guest today is making a comeback on the show. He's been highly requested to come back on, and we're very excited to have him. His deep understanding of human nature, the darkest sides of our mind, and his deeply insightful and intelligent way of making points is a joy to listen to, and I can't wait for you to listen to this rabbit hole of a conversation. So it's about to kick off. Please welcome back Mr. Sam Gibson. How are you, mate?
I'm back. Guess who's back again?
Mate, it's been like 2 years since you're on.
It has, yeah.
And we've been dying to get you back on. I know Carl obviously has been trying to get you back on. I've had a few people go, can we get that guy who like just completely blew our minds back on? I'm like, yes, we can.
We'll get that plonker on who went off on a tangent back on.
Mate, do you know what it is though, right? Because normally the way I structure these is I normally go through people's stories. So if you don't know Sam's story, go back and check out his first episode. It's all in there. This one is purely two mates having a rant about random topics in life. So it's a little bit different to what we normally do on the show, but I'm really game for it. So we're going to start off with the skinny jabs, mate, because I know you really want to talk about this, and I know it's all in the media, and I know people have varying opinions on it. So I'm just curious, do you think it's the answer to a society that's clearly lost its way, lost its discipline with food, and we're overeating, or do you think it's like an actual good idea in society? What's your take on it?
Okay, so you're going straight in with the
mate.
Deep questions.
Why hold back now? Why hold back now? You know.
Well, just so people who are listening, like, just so they understand, like, why I'm going to give the opinion I'm going to give. So my actual job in my career is I literally work with people on their eating habits. That's my career. I've been doing it for like 8 years now. So I work with people who are overcoming disordered eating habits, whether that be emotional eaters, whether that be people who've had other disordered eating like anorexia, bulimia. I did have an eating disorder myself back in the day, about 8 years ago. So what I'm about to say, it's not coming from just like, here's my opinion, I'm going to rant about it. It's actually well thought, and I haven't actually made this opinion public yet, but I think I'll surprise people with my very balanced, nuanced opinion on this. So let's get started with the pros of it. Number one, it clearly works. Like, we can't sit here and say it doesn't. We've seen the results, we've seen the transformations, we've seen people posting about it, we've seen people talking about how life-changing it is, you know. So from the outside looking in, you kind of just sit here and completely shit on it, so to speak, and say, oh, it's a complete fad, it's a this, it's that. We can't say that because there is some evidence to suggest it's saving people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if someone was to put a gun to my head and say, right, you've got to recommend one kind of medical procedure for someone who's obese and they're going to die in 6 months, either a gastric surgery or Ozempic or Mounjaro or the skinny jabs, I would pick them skinny jabs any day of the week because at least you're not chopping a hot part of your stomach in half. I work with many clients, Adam, who they've got health issues for life now because of gastric surgeries. They've got acid reflux all of the time. They're still overweight, but they're malnourished. Now, that doesn't make sense when you think about it. How can you be overweight but malnourished? Well, when you take away a part of your stomach or most of your stomach and you cannot absorb nutrients from food anymore, you'll still have the weight, you know, but you'll literally be malnourished. So they have vitamin deficiencies. They have to go on medication. You know, the lack of enjoyment of food as well. They just don't enjoy eating anymore. So they are trading a quick fix by getting a surgery for a lifetime of issues, you know. So if someone was to say, well, this is a better alternative, I'm like, I agree with you. Yeah. So that's certainly one good thing I would say about these jabs. It's avoiding the need to literally mutilate your stomach. Because let's be honest, that's pretty extreme, isn't it? Yeah. Pretty extreme.
I had a family member that actually did that, and even then, like, he lost a little bit at first, but then it just sort of plateaued. Like, he just kind of stayed that weight. So,
well, here's what people end up doing, and like I say, I've got clients who do this. That it kills their appetite, right? So they don't eat normal anymore. But what they do is they become perpetual grazers. So they'll eat a chocolate bar. Then an hour later, they'll have a couple of biscuits. Then an hour later, they'll have, you know, cereal bar. Then they might have a small meal later on. Then they'll eat a little bit more chocolate. They'll sneak some Haribos in, you know. So they don't really eat a lot of food. If you were to put that daily intake on a plate or on a table right now, it wouldn't be much, right? But it might be thousands of calories. You know, so they might be eating more calories than their body needs to lose weight, so they kind of plateau because they're not eating properly, but they're eating high-calorie items, just very small amounts, grazing throughout the day because they get full too quick, so they don't eat meals, they just snack on crap. So that's what ends up happening. Some people actually burst them, like the sleeve inside, they stretch it because they're still overeating. Like I say, that's not addressing the psychological reasons, is it? Why they're emotional eaters in the first place, why you're in that position where you need to go on some sort of extreme diet or even be considered for surgery. There's clearly some psychological things going on that's not being addressed. You know, so it's not changing behavior, let's be honest. So, back to the skinny jabs, if someone was to say pick between that or that, I'm going to pick with that any day of the week.
Yeah. Agreed.
It's very, very clever if you research the science behind it. It's actually mimicking the hormone that is released in your body when you feel full.
Yeah.
So it's sending that signal to the brain. So it's actually having neurological impacts as well. It's very, very clever. The science is very, very clever. But where I would be against it is the fact that there is no long-term studies on it whatsoever. And there's already been a whole host of health impacts, health effects that people have come out with. People actually died of it. I know people personally who had serious health issues of it and have stopped it. So that's the grey area. So on the one hand, I'm like, listen, it's obviously helping people lose weight. I cannot deny that. The science is very, very intelligent behind it.
Yeah.
The glutathione hormone, the hunger hormone is telling people that they're not hungry, they're full. So it's actually helping them change that behavior around food rather than just, I've chopped my stomach in half. Like it's a way better alternative, but it's not tested. There is no long-term study.
Yeah.
In fact, the studies are now. It's people who take it. That's the data that they're going to gather over the next 5 years, and then they're going to make their opinion on whether it's safe or not. So that's what I don't like about it. It's quite sinister.
Well, it's like I've seen a few examples of people who've been on it, and they look terrible. Like, they don't look good, because not only are they losing just any weight that they've got on their body, they're losing muscle mass, and I think the main place you see is the face, like the gauntness of the face. But they've got no energy because they're not getting any nutrition. It's like a dramatic reason, but the reason they're using it is not the reason it's designed for. Like, I'm pretty sure, I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's meant for people who are literally like, you either take this or you die or you lose a leg or something like that, right? Yeah. But these people who have got like 2 or 3 stone to lose from Orbea in 6 weeks, you don't need it. Do you know what I mean? But it's that level of like, I am just going to take the quick fix kind of thing. And it's like, there's no need for that. Like, it's such a dramatic thing, but you're not, like we said before, like, you're not going to be able to maintain that weight loss when you come off the jabs or whatever. Exactly. You're just going to go back to your old ways, and then you're going to go, oh, well, where can I get my next dose of skinny jabs from? So,
yeah. And that's the other sinister aspect that I don't like it. If you actually study what this medication is, you have to continue to take it to get the results, which means it's a subscription. So now it's about lining the pharmaceutical company's pocket. They've created the perfect solution to help people lose weight, but keep them hooked on it for life. Because if they stop taking it, they'll go back to where they were. So that means they've created an entire market of people who are now going to become reliant on these. That's a monthly subscription. In the UK, I believe it's £250 a month. In America, it's about 1,000 because they've got private healthcare. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. So for someone to maintain these results, because there's no psychological behavior change, it's temporary behavior change based off your body mimicking the hormone that tells you you're full. Yeah. But as soon as you stop doing that, your body will go back to normal. So that means that you're going to have to trade a few things. You're either going to have to trade a lot of cash to maintain the results forever, because you kind of come off it, or you're just going to have to trade it for, I'll get short-term results, but not long-term. So that's what's sinister about it. It's basically creating an entire new market for these pharmaceutical companies, and combine that with the fact that there's no long-term studies on health. It's dangerous. What really concerns me, Adam, because I've got a lot of clients who struggle with this, when women get to their 40s, 50s, 60s, the menopause age, right? Yeah. Metabolic health is very, very important. And the key variable that kind of, correlates to good metabolic health as you age is the amount of muscle mass that you have. Yeah. The amount of muscle mass that you have. Muscle mass equates to good metabolic health. So many women struggle with hormonal issues, metabolic issues, and the way to protect against that is to have a strong, healthy body. Now, this doesn't mean become Arnold Schwarzenegger. No. It just means have an adequate amount of muscle mass, right? Ozempic is catabolic. It eats away at muscle mass. It doesn't just lose body fat, it loses tissue. So a lot of people are becoming very gaunt, like you said, skinny on it, and that's not good. So I'm concerned for a lot of women who may be in the 30s and 40s taking it now. What's their health going to be like when they're in their 50s and 60s, because they've stripped away the muscle mass that they had. And as you get older, it becomes harder and harder to maintain lean body mass and even build it, especially for women, because they've got no testosterone anyway, or very little. When they go through the hormones, like the hormone change with the menopause, I'm just very, very concerned. I can't see it ending well. What you said before about what it should be for, someone's going to die and they're like, you need to lose weight now, otherwise you're going to die in 6 months. Like, seriously, you're at that point now, you're morbidly obese. That's who the drug should be for. That's a necessary evil, a good trade-off. But like you said, someone who just doesn't want to address their emotional eating and they want to take it just to lose weight, to hopefully bypass the whole behavior change, doing it for the wrong reasons, and I'm a freedom of choice guy. I said this last time, people can do what they want. I genuinely believe that this drug should exist because people should be able to access it if they want, but I'm going to approach it from two sides. There's definitely some positives to it,
Yeah.
and there's definitely some negatives. But I'm going to reserve my full opinion on it because it hasn't been out for 5 years. It's been out for 1. So let's revisit in 4 years or 5 years. Let's see the health issues that people are having, and I think there's gonna be a lot. There's going to be a lot of what's the word? Lawsuits. That's all I'll say.
Oh yeah. Well, there was already that when the whole COVID jabs and stuff happened, people suing and stuff.
It's just Mark
anything
2,
that you
isn't
put,
it?
anything that you put unnaturally in your body is it's got to have some sort of detrimental effect. It's got to, like, for the most part, like something especially that completely eats away at anything that's going on in your body. It's going to have some sort of detrimental effect.
Yeah, it's
like,
not natural, is it?
Yeah, I know exactly. So the body positivity movement was another thing we want to talk about. So where do you currently stand on it? Is it empowerment or is it just like does it fluctuate?
Yeah, okay. So originally the body positivity movement was supposed to be about people who like lost limbs in accidents. Yeah, it was supposed to be for people who had disfigurements, people who had like visual issues, you know, people who had, like I say, amputees and whatnot. Then it kind of got hijacked by you know, people, the people who denounce diet culture, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because I work with women who've had a lifetime of issues from this whole diet culture and the brainwashing and the programming behind that. And I think the healthiest thing a lot of people can do is denounce that. Like putting your worth on a pedestal as if I'm only good enough if I lose weight is a dangerous way to live.
Yeah.
We talked about this last time. So I'm all for people saying, you know what, weight loss doesn't represent my worthiness. It's not something that I should be striving for.
Yeah,
we'll kind of sit here and say that if you are overweight, it's not going to impact your health physically and mentally. That's just, it is what it is. You know, so the body positivity movement, we've noticed a sinister thing change as well. With the rise of Ozempic, you've got your former body positivity influencers who've been posting for years about, you know, if you support weight loss, you are fat phobic. If you attempt to go on a diet, you are playing into the patriarchy or something, because they've somehow linked 2 and 2 together and got 25 million, you know, by saying weight loss is about the patriarchy.
Yeah, it's about improving how we look in the eyes of men, kind of thing.
Apparently.
Well, I remember Adele. Do you remember when Adele went through the rabbit trail and everyone was like, if you're supporting Adele's thing, you're fat phobic. It's like no, she looks way better, healthier.
Adam, right? They're so inconsistent, the body positivity movement, the people who are pushing this, right? Because it's built on nothing. It's not built on real substance or truth. It's built on cope. It's a cope.
Yeah.
People who don't like the life look for an ideology to attach to because that gives them a sense of meaning and distracts them from what they're not dealing with.
Yeah.
So Adele was the poster girl for, you don't have to look like the traditional celebrity to be successful. This is why we should denounce diet culture. You can be any size. And I'm like, yeah, fine. But the moment she lost weight, the same movement turned on her. Yeah. It's like, that's the inconsistencies with this movement.
There's another one as well, right? So remember Lizzo? Like, if you said to a woman, what do you think of Lizzo? Like, is she beautiful? Yeah, she's beautiful. She's powerful. Like, go girl. If you went, you remind me a little bit of Lizzo. They'd kick off at you because you essentially calling them. Do you know what I mean? That imbalance there is like.
We should only comment on people's. But do you know what I do when people? Because someone asked me this the other week, Sam, what do you think? I like, you know, giving people advice who need to lose weight. I went, listen, if they don't tell me at all they're unhappy with their life, it's not my place to tell them you should lose weight.
Yeah.
We can sit here and have a conversation around the health issues, but if someone's genuinely happy, don't dare say that they should lose weight. That's not your business.
Yeah.
But if they're now addressing that they're unhappy, they have health issues, they want to change, that's when I'd sit down and have a conversation and be like, right, listen, you probably should lose some weight. But that's because they have used what I call come towards energy. They have came towards me, or they've at least put that energy out there that they want help, they want to change, they want to lose weight.
Yeah.
Now you can start giving advice. So I'm not a fan of just like demonizing people and say, right, if you're overweight, you're a bad person, that's ridiculous. You know, but yeah, you're totally right. It's like this flip-flopping between what's right and what's wrong. You know, and like back to my previous point with this Ozempic stuff, now that Ozempic's come out, a lot of your former body positivity influencers are now peddling the jab. So it's like, so it wasn't about body acceptance and big is beautiful and all along. It was about you didn't have a way to deal with your own emotional eating, so you denounced it and went the other way as a coping mechanism to like blame the system rather than look at your own flaws. But now that this quick fix exists, you're all for it again. So was it really about body positivity all along, or was it about you not dealing with your own shit and then projecting this onto the world in some form of ideology? So it's kind of revealed a lot. This Ozempic's not only revealed, like, you know, the sinister aspects of the pharmaceutical industry, it's also revealed the dark nature of a lot of people's minds. Former people who denounced weight loss, denounced diet culture, are now pushing the weight loss jabs. It's like, well, that's very inconsistent, and that raises my eyebrows at him. It raises my eyebrows about human nature and about the mindset of some people.
We naturally want to get the biggest result possible for the least amount of effort, and it's like, obviously, if you were say someone's really overweight and they're like pushing this, like, body positivity, like you can be fat, you can be happy. It's like, I remember there was someone like fat is healthy and all that sort of stuff I've seen, and I'm like, well, logically we know that's not true, but 90% of us just went, all right, you fucking crack on with your movement or whatever. And then it's like, I think a lot of them who were pushing that, who were maybe overweight, were like, well, the hardest thing to do is for me to lose weight, because then I lose my sense of identity, and also I have to put in a lot of effort to eat better, to exercise. It's not worth it. I'd rather just be like, well, I can be happy like this. Lots of people on the internet are saying I can be happy like this, so I'm going to remain this way. But now there's a quick fix, and they can lose it a little bit easier. They're like, that part of the brain of like, I want to get the most results for the least amount of effort is like, okay, now I can go for this, I think that's where the flip lies.
100%. But obviously you've got to remember this is my job. I work with people who struggle with their eating habits, and they've come to me and said, Sam, I want to lose weight. I want to do it the right way. And I'm like, right, let's do it the right way. So you have to have a little bit of a psychological intervention. And what I have to be honest with about a lot of people in the body positivity movement that are struggling with a lot of mental health issues. So there's a massive link between past traumas and an inability to integrate those past traumas and weight, right? Because food can be a protection. I don't have to get into the deep aspects of it, but it could be because of past abuse. It could be because of social anxiety. It could be because of a lot of things. So you've got to consider what benefits does someone get being overweight and saying, oh, I can't lose weight, it's too hard, or I denounce that. Well, it might prevent them from putting themselves out there. It might prevent them from getting in a relationship. It might be the perfect excuse about why they're not happy in their life. And like you said, if they don't have that excuse or that justification anymore about, oh, it's about my body, then who are they? They lose that sense of identity. It's scary to think about that. So you've got to understand that a lot of people who do struggle with their eating habits, there's a lot of deeper psychological things going on as well, which is why I'm not a fan of just like making it like an arbitrary argument of like weight loss is good, being overweight is bad, because you don't know what's going on with people who are overweight. So we'll have to be very multi-layered with this approach. And I like to try and separate things. I can have a conversation with someone who, let's say, they're overweight and say, like, your body does not represent your worthiness. I'm focused on your character. My first question about getting to know you would be like, what you're interested in, what are your hobbies? It wouldn't be like, oh, how do you feel about your body? Like, I would never think about that. Now, if they happen to bring up like their body, I might have a conversation around them, with them, around that. But yeah, we need to be separating people's character from their looks, right? Yeah. And I think that's the problem with society. A lot of society, a lot of women have been brainwashed that worthiness equals looks, and they're obsessed with it to the point that they'll generally kind of destroy their mental health chasing these materialistic beauty standards. And I want to try and empower women. That's what I try and do who I work with. It's like, you need to work on your character just as much as your body. And there's a lot of, I say this all the time, but a lot of physical weight is actually unresolved emotional baggage. You see my point? Yeah. So if you haven't addressed the emotional baggage, that will manifest as physical weight. And when you just try and lose the weight but not address the psychology behind why the weight was on in the first place, then you're not addressing the real reasons as to why you are overweight. So again, I think the body positivity movement, it kind of dances around that, because I think what it really represents is we're not willing to deal with our emotional baggage. So it's manifesting as now I'm an emotional eater who can't address it. So I'm going to use the kind of excuse of, well, I'm going against diet culture and the patriarchy. I don't even know what the patriarchy means, by the way, but whatever. To denounce it as like a form of rebellion. Yeah. But really, I just see that as it's a distraction from their own darkness. Yeah. Carl Jung calls this, the shadow, right? Everyone's got darkness. Everyone's got a shadow. Yeah. And when we fail to integrate the darker aspects of our psyche, we attach to ideological things. And that's why people argue on Facebook. That's why people blame things politically. That's why people attach to religions. And it's human nature. Humans who haven't integrated their shadow and are aware of their own dark side, their own traumas, what they need to work on, the real reason as to why they have the personality they do, they'll just cope their entire life. Yeah. They'll just point the finger and blame, and they'll attach to these movements, and that's the deeper issue.
Well, that was one of my next points, is obviously you look at society now, and we're in there's a lot of these little echo chambers around, right? There's all these little groups that I don't think that we're meant to be in. I think in terms of like the herd mentality side of things, right? Like, we want to be liked. We want to be in a group that makes us feel secure in our beliefs and in who we are, which is fair. The problem is now we don't have to survive. Before, herd mentality was about survival. Like we said in the last episode, you get ostracized from the tribe if you are, like weird or different or whatever. Now there's so many people, so many different herds going on. You can just fit anywhere, and you can hide under a flag, under a banner, or whatever. And it's like, where do you think that fits in now, because I think conformity is almost like a little bit of a schoolyard bully. Before it was a necessity. Now you can be bullied to believe something or not believe something. Like, what's your take on that?
Well, that's how they control societies, to be honest. That's how they control people. They play on our own human instincts, which is to fit into the herd, because it's survival. So we kind of turn that off, even though we are not in survival mode anymore. Well, a lot of us are in different ways, but not literally survival. It might be like financial stress, or not liking your job, or cost of living crisis. So it keeps you in that fight or flight, but we're not in like actual, the saber-toothed tigers running around about to kill us.
Yeah, life or death.
Yes, we're not in life or death survival, right? We're in a different state. But psychologically, from a deeper aspect, our nervous system still thinks we are, still thinks we might be. So these people who control agendas and society and ideologies, and who put these narratives out there, who are in charge of information, they play on human weakness. They know that. They know the psychology. So I think this herd mentality we've got now, it's a combination of two things. One, a lot of people are deeply lacking meaning in their life, and people who lack meaning and lack a purpose will latch onto ideologies, right? So there's that as well. They capture people who are likely to become ideological thinkers because they are lacking meaning, but also they know that it's human nature to go along with the crowd. Most people are agreeable people. There's also a difference in the gender as well, like the biological differences. Men are slightly more disagreeable than women. That's actually associated to the chemical of testosterone. Testosterone makes you more disagreeable. So it's natural that men tend to be more disagreeable. It's natural that women tend to be more agreeable. Like, I hate to make this point, but but it suits a purpose in evolution at the end of the day. Most cults unfortunately prey on women. Like, that's how it works out, because men are more like, hang on a second, like, they're more, they are more likely to go against the narrative, whereas women are not, because it's natural for them to conform, because that represents safety. So I think the people who are pushing these narratives know that. That's why they target women. That's why they target women.
If you look at a lot of the political debates and things like that, they always get into emotional points. It's never like a logical point of it. We should probably do this because of this. They start pulling on people's heartstrings, emotions. And I mean, a lot of the more I talk to like a vast array of people, the more I realize that men aren't as interested in politics these days as women seem to be. That's just my general take on that. And I've noticed a lot of it is because, but like in a way that it's not about necessarily what it's going to do for the country. It's like the little sort of like, well, they hate this group of people. Or they're against it.
Identity politics.
More
that's
so.
What we're living in now, and that's also how the people who are controlling the narratives keep us down. It's the divide and conquer tactics. Bread and circuses. I don't know who said that. It might have been Marcus Aurelius, one of the Roman emperors from thousands of years ago in the Roman Empire. That's how we distract the people. That stops the peasants from uprising. Bread and circuses. Also divide and conquer. So we live in a consumer society right now where entertainment is on tap. We've got all these creature comforts. So that's the bread and the circuses, right? We've got entertainment at all times. Also divide and conquer. If we can get black people to hate white people to hate black people, men to hate women to hate men, straight people to hate gay people to hate... Have you noticed that's what the ideology is now?
I'd like to question this, because I'm on the fence with this, because I don't know whether this was something that was intended, and I know I kind of get where you're coming from with it. I don't know whether this was intended to turn people against each other, or whether this was just the next inevitable step, and then there was a bunch of opportunists who were controlling these narratives who said, we can use this now.
That's what I said before them. So they prey on human nature. So this is always in there, right? It's natural to fear things that are different to you. And fear can manifest as hate, because when you don't understand something, you want to fight against it, right? So it's a natural human instinct. But it's been engineered as far as... Like, if you talk to the average person, they don't hate any ideology group. I don't hate anyone. Yet the media will paint out that there's a war going on. Like, literally, it's like, hang on, I think most women accept men's differences. Most men accept women's differences. Most people are happy for anyone to be gay, straight, or whatever. They're just like, don't force your narratives on me. I'm happy with that. Most people, I would say 90% of people are like completely not even attached in this identity politics. But like you mentioned before, the echo chambers, you've got these tiny minorities of people from these sides, and the governments go, I know what we can do to rile up society. Because when you're divided and conquered, you're separated. You can only go against narratives and essentially create revolutions and revolt against the narrative and the agenda if you come together. Are you not seeing the film? Is it Ants?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that scene where it's like, if they knew...
Oh no, Bug's Life.
Bug's Life,
with Popeye. Yeah.
Bug's Life, sorry, I always get them two mixed up. Bug's Life, yeah. He's like, there's more of them than there is us. If they figure that out, we're fucked. The guy who's saying it, right? That's a great speech, because that's life. So how do they keep that narrative going? they divide us all. It's been going on for since millennia. This is how civilizations have controlled their people. They create agendas, pit people against each other, and while you're arguing amongst yourself, they're laughing all the way at the bank. And that's the way the world's run. We have to wake up to that. You know, the moment you see something that kind of triggers you and go, well, that's, you know, because I scroll on Facebook every day and everything's like shit on white straight men these days. Like, that's everything. And I'm just like, this is just trying to get me riled up, isn't it? This is just trying to, I'm not falling for it. And I try and have conversation with people who I know who say, oh, you're seeing this, saying that, saying that. I'm like, listen, it's about creating that reaction that you've just done there.
People do it to get that reaction,
Go and believe it.
Well, it was like, I saw a headline, because I used to be a massive Doctor Who fan, just going on a tangent. I used to be a massive Doctor Who fan, and I saw a headline yesterday, and it was like, Doctor Who's wokest lead axed. Not the lead axed, they call it wokest, because they knew that people would see that word and have to have a say on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, people are just, as soon as you put something like that in, they could have just said main lead in Doctor Who quits or something like that, right? But they decided to make it the woke idea so that people comment on that. They weren't commenting on the rest of the show, they were just commenting on the woke ideas of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, people will just jump on it. But people, I think as well, I remember years ago, I used to listen to this guy all the time. Actually met him once, called Owen Cook, and he made a great point on one thing. He's like, people don't understand nuances anymore. No one wants to think of the other side of the argument. And he said there was I think it was the NFL. There was an NFL reporter, right? And one of the players had hit his girlfriend or wife or something like that. And they'd been in a heated argument, and she was shouting at him, he was shouting at her, and eventually it blew up and he pushed her or hit her or whatever, right? So he gets sacked from the NFL, he gets dropped, whatever, right? Fair enough, right? But this presenter had gone on and obviously spoke about it, and he said, obviously, well, we don't condone this in any way, but then he like kind of ended it with like a message of like, basically like, if you are with someone who is prone to aggression, so look after yourself, basically, as a woman. Don't put yourself in these positions. Don't rile someone up who's prone to aggression. And obviously the backlash of it was insane, because it was basically saying that you're saying there's some sort of woman's responsibility in the fact that you got hit. And it's like, no, that's not what he's saying. But what he's saying is
guilt by admission kind of stuff. It's like, if you fail to clarify that, it means you're against it. It's almost like if I say, I really love mangoes, they're my favourite fruit, and they go, so that means you hate pineapple? I never said that. Yeah. That's the mindset of.
But it was just like, when I listened to that, I was like, you know what? He's got a good point. I understand where he's coming from, and I understand why people have gone against it. But if you just took a second to look at the nuances of that, like, it's like if I'm walking in, I don't know, where's the roughest part of London? Is it South London or something like that? Is that
Peckham or something?
If I'm walking in, where was it? Brixton. If I'm walking in Brixton at 2:00 in the morning with my phone out and a watch on, not expecting to get some sort of trouble, maybe.
Yeah,
I'm an idiot.
I'll
put myself in that situation, you know? And men and women can put themselves in these situations, and it's like, at some point, there is some sort of like, you know, because if that happened to me, and say I got mugged by, I've seen this recently with a lot of these videos online of like immigrants, and people are like basically catching them doing things or whatever the narrative is on Facebook, and calling them scum or whatever. If I put that on, if I was mugged, for example, in Brixton, and it comes up as a news report, right, that it was someone that was black or from another country, they're not going to focus on the point that I was in that place at that time. They're going to focus on his ethnicity or his thing.
All they're doing is trying to rile up hate.
Exactly.
Among both sides. You've got to rise above that, because the moment that you identify with a certain group, you've lost, because now you're going to be controlled by that narrative.
Yeah.
And like you said about people losing nuance, I can absolutely sit here and be like we're mates, right? But I'm sure we've got something that we disagree with.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I'll write your entire character off because of one thing that I disagree with, and unfortunately that's what people do now. I'm just going to be honest, people with low IQs, low emotional intelligence, cannot discern the difference between, I disagree with something you've said, your opinion, but I don't have to attack your character. And now, whether it's social media, whether it's societal conditioning, whether it's, I just don't know, there's many things that could create this, but we seem to have people who are walking around just constantly looking to be offended all the time and be in a state of fight or flight, that echo chamber, and that they're becoming brainwashed. It's almost like cult-like thinking.
Yeah,
you know, it's very eye-opening. It's very eyebrow-raising as well, to be like wow, like I can absolutely sit here and disagree with this person, but I don't hate them, and I don't also write off everything they say. Whereas in these days, you can say one thing, and then these groups of people will come after you and completely write you off as an entire person because of one thing they disagree with. It's like, we need to have conversations. We need to have nuance and balance. Separate people's opinions and thoughts from their character. Like that, you can have a very good character. That's what I'm looking for, character. It's like, do you stand up for what you believe in? Yeah, that's cool. That means you can also be wrong, and that's fine. You can be wrong. I'm probably wrong about loads of shit, and I'm all right with that.
Yeah.
I'd love to be corrected by things I'm wrong by, because if I am, I'm like, you know what? Thank you so much for that. I'm now a smarter person than I was 5 minutes ago because I've been corrected. Like,
Mate, I'm corrected on the show all the fucking time. Like, people come on and I say something, they're like, no, that's not right. And I'm like,
it's
okay,
just
fair
being
enough.
a human. Like, you've got to be open-minded, and people aren't open-minded now. They're so black and white thing, and it's like cult, like brainwashing. It is that echo chamber.
Yeah. Well, people don't want to think. They want to be told what to think and what to do. And then they're like, no, I like being free. It's like, do you though? Like, do you actually want to be free? Or I mean, there's loads of films on this, like, of like, do people want freedom or do they actually want like control? Like, to an extent, it's
they do.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't want to have to think about everything.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to know it. Like for example, I don't need to touch fire to know that it's going to burn my hand. Someone else told me that, and the world tells me that. You know what I mean? Like, it's a prime example. It's just like,
yeah. Carl Jung quote: "Thinking is difficult. That's why people judge."
Yeah, I love it.
It's just easier to make an assumption than it is to actually think about things.
Well, you mentioned something to me the other day of doublethink from was it George Orwell's book? Yeah. So what was that exactly? Because
so anyone who's listened to George Orwell, read George Orwell's book 1984, written in the 40s, it was basically about this dystopian future where the world is completely authoritarian, right? So there's no freedom of speech, there's no nothing. There's a thing called thought crime, which means that just having a thought that goes against the narrative means you're a criminal. So they've made thinking illegal. You're not allowed to think. They have such a term called doublethink as well, which is basically a psychological programming where, in the analogy he uses in the book is 2 + 2 = 5. That's what he means. We all know 2 + 2 is 4, right? We know that. But if the people who control information, which is the big brother, it's conceptualized as in George Orwell's books, the government, big government, right? They control everything. And if big brother says 2 + 2 is 5, then it's 5, despite what you think. So he used that as an analogy to say, if we can convince the people through maybe fear, manipulation, control, brainwashing, by herd mentality, by like social like angst, like if I say, oh, this is wrong, and then all of a sudden everyone attacks me for it, I'm likely to conform and change my beliefs to go along with the tribe because I don't want to be attacked. So it's a form of self-censoring. So doublethink is basically about censoring the self. It's about going against your own intuition. It's actually overriding your own intuition to say, well, what I think's wrong, so I'm just going to go along with that, even though I know it's not. So it's a very sinister thing, and he conceptualized it as the 2 + 2 = 5, and it's 5 because we say it is.
Yeah.
You know, and the character in the book, a gentleman called Winston, who was the main character of George Orwell, that's the end of the book. He conforms, he gives up, he's now controlled and brainwashed because he believes 2 + 2 is 5, and he actually believes it because they torture him until he believes it.
Yeah.
So doublethink was a concept George Orwell created to say that society can create certain circumstances that create narratives that if you go against, you'll be so uncomfortable to go against it that eventually you'll choose to override your own intuition and just go along with the narrative. So doublethink is happening right now. The classic example is men can be women, women can be men. Biological sex is not a real thing. You have to say it's not real. Everyone knows that that's just complete bullshit, but so many people are literally self-censoring in the moment because they fear the what's the
repercussions.
Word? The repercussions, the clapback that they get off people, that they literally go, 2 + 2 is 5.
Yeah.
Men can be women, women can be men.
But it's funny how what we can actually overlook in society. Like, if you look at what we've gone through in just a few recent years, I mean, Donald Trump, for example, he was fucking a porn star while his wife was pregnant, and they elected him president, right? Jordan Belfort was pulled off the biggest fraud scam ever, went to prison, and then Leonardo DiCaprio played him in a movie. Caitlyn Jenner ran over someone, killed them, then became Woman of the Year. Logan Paul went into a forest, filmed some dead people, got cancelled, then came back to be one of the biggest boxing success stories. Like, people don't pay for things, and we can rationalize anyone's comeback or like flip the narrative at any point in life.
Yeah, 100%. Like I say, a lot of people, that herd mentality, a lot of people can't critically think because critically thinking requires to know oneself. Like, you've got to know yourself a little bit in order to critically think, because what critically thinking literally means is, well, what are they saying, what's that saying, what's the two opposing sides of this narrative? I'm going to study both sides and I'm going to make my own judgment based off the evidence I see in front of me. Well, that's hard. You have to be a fairly well thought out, well read person in order to even have an opinion. So many people don't do that. They go, what feels comfortable, I'll go with that. What feels uncomfortable, I'll hate that. So they know that a certain amount of, let's say 8 billion people on this planet, now let's say a third of them are people with, I'm just going to be honest, low emotional intelligence. They're not very intelligent people. You don't need to control the entire world in order to control the narrative. You just need to control enough of the population that act as the mob with pitchforks against the people who are going against the narrative, and then that's enough to squash society.
Yeah.
So in George Orwell's book, like that, they've created thought crime. They've got cameras watching them at all times, and it's not, the whole slogan's "Big Brother is watching you." So they've programmed society to be like, listen, if you don't go along with our narrative, you just get killed, vaporized. He calls it in the book. And that went on for 20, 30 years. So by the time 1984 comes around in this book, the people are self-censoring. There's no longer a need to go against the narrative because it's become they've become institutionalized. The double thinks
it's
a real
the whole
thing.
"oh, we're gonna get cancelled" thing. Like, this
It's
has been brought
beyond
up
that.
so many
It's
times
beyond that,
on
Adam.
this
If
podcast.
you read the book, it's beyond that. It's
Yeah.
like, he talks about the revolution in the book, which means 20, 30 years ago, before George Orwell in this story, people were going against the narrative. But now time has passed that everyone who's left in this society, they don't even know what free speech is anymore. They don't even have free thinking abilities. They are brainwashed from day one from what the narrative is, and they self-censor to go against it. And the whole story is Winston is a character in this book who starts to get the rumblings of critical thinking. He starts to question it. He starts to write things down in a diary, and that's how he gets found out.
Yeah.
And that's because the Big Brother's watching. He's now questioning. He's like, is this real? Is what they're saying real? Is the war that's going on real?
Yeah.
He starts to question things. Critical thinking is absolutely not allowed. To come after him. Thought police come in the house, barricade him, take him to room 101, I think it's called in the book, torture him until he goes against it. So basically society in that book is completely controlled by this authoritarian regime, to where they don't control people physically. That's why tyrants failed in the past. Hitler, Stalin, all them. They failed in the past because the people rose up and revolted against them. So the goal for these future tyrants, and what George Orwell was prophesizing, is they're not going to come after you physically. They're going to come after you spiritually and emotionally. If they can control your mind through thought, doublethink, and thought crime, and repercussions of going against narratives, you will do their dirty work for them by refusing to speak up and refusing to stand up. We are seeing the rumblings of an Orwellian society come up now, Adam. We know in the last 10 years a lot of people are frightened to speak up. They're frightened to critically think. They'll just go along with anything the government tell them.
But
And that's
here's the thing, though. We won't get vaporized like in the book,
No.
right? So what actually is the repercussion? So do you think we are, maybe as a society, more of cowards, or do you think we're too nice?
The repercussion is, what's the word? Like, people will come after you. Cancel culture.
Yeah.
People will think bad of you. And they've even got things now where they might deplatform you. They might this. Like, I've got my opinions, right? But I don't feel the need to talk about it because I'm not bothered. I talk about you because this is fun. But I don't need to post about it, right? But let's say if I did, like, there's people being jailed in England right now for Facebook posts they've made.
Yeah, I saw one the other week actually.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think
Like,
it might be the same one.
that's not good. That's not good at all. I think you should be allowed to say anything you want, even if that thing's terribly dangerous. Do you know why? Because then everyone can come together and go, that guy is an absolute imbecile and a psychopath. Do not follow him at all costs, and here's why you should. And we denounce it through discourse, political discourse, ideological discourse, communication. We allow people to make up their own minds, and we'll have a conversation about why that's not supposed to be the right way. But where cancel culture becomes dangerous is, they'll cancel the bad guys, but who defines the bad guys? That's the thing. So we'll kind of have this thing in place.
At the minute, TikTok, if you vandalize on TikTok, it's like,
well,
that's it, you're done.
Even when they say, we'll only go against hate speech, it's like, well, define hate speech for me. Who's defining what it is? And this is the whole point of George Orwell. I'll come back to that again. He talked about language and how even in the book, right, they got rid of words, that people don't know what the word of things mean anymore, because if you know the definition of words, then you can use those as an examples to how to have discourse and go against narratives. If they just change the word to where that word doesn't exist, you can't think. So it's we're seeing the rumblings of it now.
So do you think as a society we need to express views more?
100%, yeah.
Regardless of the pushback?
Regardless of the pushback. And even if those views are stupid and like actually harmful, get another guy to come on and say, right, that guy, what you just said, he's completely wrong. This is an absolutely dangerous narrative. Here's why you shouldn't believe in this, and I'll let you make up your own opinion.
So who do you think's left to listen to then? Who's left that we can trust as a source of information, so to speak?
I don't know.
Because obviously we get like the podcasters now. If you've got a microphone in front of you, it makes it look official. It's like anything we say on this, like
are they not just saying things for views? Like we know that they are.
Oh, yeah.
Is what, like, Joe Rogan's the most popular podcast, and I do listen to him. I love his podcast, but even a part of me thinks like, well, he's not going to say certain things, or he might be inclined to say certain things because he's getting paid for it, getting paid well. Like, is he really completely free and, you know, it's not being controlled, or he's not self-censoring? We all self-censor to a degree. Like, there's things I would probably, you know, I'm just like, I wouldn't talk about that because...
Yeah, stuff you talk about with your close mates and then not on a podcast. Yeah, well,
You know, I'm trying to be open as possible here, and I believe I don't have any ridiculous views. I don't. The views I'm saying right now is what I believe in, but I don't have any ridiculous ones. But I would also be cautious about speaking even what I'm saying now if I was in the wrong room, because I know the pushback would be insane. So I think that's how the control people that have ideology set up to where the mob will do the dirty work for them. They don't need to police it like, you know, with guns and bullets and arrest you. The court of public opinion will do that for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're seeing a lot of viewpoints quickly written off as like conspiracy theories or pseudoscience, like whether it's anti-vaccine beliefs or chemtrails or whatever it is. Like, a lot of people are marked crazy, but like, do you think like dismissal is just an easy way to shut down uncomfortable conversations?
100%.
Or do you think there's value in exploring these ideas a little bit more than people are?
Absolute value. If I hear something I don't agree with, I'm like, I don't agree with that, but I wonder why that person's got that belief. How did they get that? Like,
what draws them to that in the first place?
I'm curious to understand. Whereas a lot of people who would just have that, you know, my way, it's an authoritarian attitude, let's be honest. Authoritarian attitudes, right? They don't just manifest as like tyrannical societies like Nazi Germany. That's the part of the collective consciousness, right? So again, go back to Carl Jung. I'm a big Carl Jung fan. He said that people who get elected, like politically, they're a manifestation of the collective consciousness. So why Hitler got elected in the 1930s was because Germany was on its knees at that time. They were in our republic. They were in economic strife. Inflation was through the roof. All of their resources had been taken off them from France and England because of World War One. The German people were suffering. So when people are suffering, they'll do anything to get out of suffering. So they went along with this ideology that got them short-term results. In the end, obviously, it created chaos and social disruption and racism and all the horrible things we know what happened. But in the short term, they were willing to go along with it because they're like, wow, I can afford a loaf of bread again. Hitler's got all the jobs back. Wow, I'm going to vote for this guy, right? So Carl Jung says the collective consciousness based off the collective amount of people, right, the majority of people, where they are at psychologically at the time, will manifest a leader based off what their needs are. That's what politics is, right? What was the question again?
Why are people drawn to these ideas in the first place?
Yeah. So basically, what I see happening is the collective consciousness will like manifest as like, you know, ideologies, political leaders, but a microcosm of that is that exists within our own nature as well, right? So there's always a tyrant inside of us, right, where we want what we want and we don't like anyone who wants to go against it. That's what a tyrant is. We have to self-check and go, I don't have to be this narcissistic, egotistical maniac who thinks the world revolves around me, right? But when people are not willing to engage in conversation, like if you said something I disagree with right now, I'd be like, I don't agree with you, Adam, but could you explain why you believe that? I'm really curious to compare ideas here. If you just said, Sam, I think this, I went, nah, that's it, you're an absolute idiot, I'm not having a conversation with you. You're right, delete him now.
Storm out, cancel him.
You're behaving as a little tyrant,
as
literally a little Hitler who thinks that the world revolves around you. So when we see that play out in society right now, it shows a lack of emotional intelligence, the ability to sit there and go, I don't agree with you, but like, say your point and I will allow my points to prove why you are wrong, and hey, we can, you know, we don't have to hate each other. Whereas people who just shut you down, they're unwilling to engage in discourse at all, which shows you that they are an absolute authoritarian. That's a sinister aspect of their psyche being revealed in that moment. It's a Freudian slip, you know that term? It's like, ooh, you've just revealed something about your inner nature there. I'm like, well, I'm going to stay away from you. I'm not going to have anything to do with you. If you are like, no, that's it, and I'm not even willing to engage, I don't even need to hear why you believe that. You're just wrong. That's, like I say, you've revealed a part of your psyche there. You haven't integrated some of your darkness. Whereas I'm not saying I'm not perfect by any means. There's probably loads of things. Someone could psychoanalyze me right now and say, Sam, you're an absolute, you know, plonker. I'm like, all right, fair enough, probably am, right?
Is that the medical term?
An absolute idiot, right? You're a maniac, right? Fair enough, right? Okay, but I can absolutely sit here and say, I'm willing to hear why I disagree with you, and I will not attack your character because of it, because I've realised that there was I never used to be like that. There was certainly an inner tyrant in me. If you go on my Facebook post 10 years ago, I would be that guy I'm talking about now. I'm speaking from personal experience. I would hate anyone who had different beliefs to me, and I would like get involved in arguments on Facebook to the point where I'm literally getting raging over stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell am I doing? And I had to have that awakening to be like, what the hell's wrong with me? Unintegrated dark traits that I hadn't thought about, you know. So the human psyche, human nature, I'm fascinated with it, right? And in order to understand other people, you have to understand the darkness within yourself, which is why I went down the rabbit hole with Carl Jung and things. And when you do that, you realize and you see society for what it is, and you're like, oh my God, this is just this person's trauma playing out in real time.
Well, speaking of that, the thing that comes off that often is this toxic positivity. Now, I know you were a gamer. I don't know whether you still are. Are you still a gamer?
I thought you said a gay man.
Gay man, yeah. You're a good-looking guy, but I don't see it.
A gamer? No, not really. I've played games, but not.
So there was a game that came out many years ago called We Happy Few, right? And the premise of the game was everyone takes this pill, and when you take it, the world that you physically see changes. It's all like almost like an acid trip, but it's required by law for you to take this. And in the game, you can obviously choose to take it or not to take it, and then it influences choices in the game. But if you don't take it, you have to wear a mask, and people eventually see through this, and they'll come at you because they know that you see the truth.
Yeah.
But they'll come and beat the shit out of you for not taking this pill.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people now are using this sort of like stay on the pill thing, but like they're covering this up with toxic positivity.
Yeah.
And it's like anyone that comes to attack their positive world and their crystals and all this shit is like demonized. Like you're not allowed to have negative shit in your life. It has to be positive all the time. Everything is sunshine and rainbows and all this stuff. Like where do you sit on the toxic positivity stuff?
Yeah, I mean, toxic positivity, I've heard some psychologists talk about this as like toxic empathy as well. And unfortunately, there's dark people out there, there's monsters out there who will manipulate you, who will use you, who will abuse you, who will go against you for their own gain. Like these psychopaths and sociopaths exist, right? They exist. Yeah. So to paint this world as like this fantasy that everyone needs to do this and everyone needs to be happy and everyone only positivity, it's actually very dangerous. Yeah. You know, it's very, very dangerous. I would be concerned with the person who had this like toxic positivity mindset, because Dr. John DeMartini, guy who I'm very passionate about, I learned a lot from him. He's a neurologist, neuroscientist, great guy, great author. His book called The Value Factor has changed my life. Anyways, he says if you're too positive, you're deluded. If you're too negative, you're deluded. Humans are the most powerful from a thinking perspective when we're actually very balanced, when we're aware of the positives, but also aware of the negatives. So toxic positivity, it's just overly empathizing with people without actually, like, you know, telling them what they need to hear. Like, you're a man, I'm a man, you know, like, if you were going through a problem in your life, would you want someone to point out what you could do about it, or would you want someone to just mollycoddle you?
I'd want it to be pointed out personally. Yeah, absolutely.
And what would happen if you got overly mollycoddled? What do you think that would? Let's say you got mollycoddled for 20 years. Yeah. Where do you think you'd be in 20 years' time?
I'd be, for starters, deluded, but I'd be in the same repetitive cycle because no one would have told me how to get out of it. They would have just given me a bandage of some nice words and you know your worth and live your dreams and you know you're worth more than this. You know what I mean? That you deserve better and all this. Like I'd just be deluded and nothing would have changed internally.
Exactly. And is that what you want?
Absolutely not.
There we go.
But I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of people just want that bandage for 90% of their life.
They don't want it deep down. They want a better life, but it's so scary to think about the role that they play in their own suffering. It's easier to be, you know, mollycoddled. It's like this infantile addiction. Carl Jung spoke about this. I can't remember what he called it, but it is like an infantile addiction. It's like if I've always got problems and then people come and solve them for me, then I'll not have to deal with the deeper aspects of my psyche. And this is all unconscious, by the way. It's like a lack of responsibility. So they stay stuck in this like victim mindset where this is how governments take advantage of that. The nanny state, you know, like you mentioned before, about people who don't want to think for themselves. They just want everything like done for them because that feels comfortable for a lot of people. But that's not going to get you anywhere long term. In order to actually become powerful people, you know, to be balanced in the middle, aware of our own negatives, aware of our positives, how too much of one thing's bad, how we need to be very balanced, and we need to negotiate with ourselves on a daily basis to try and stay very balanced. We'll have to risk feeling hurt. We'll have to risk feeling negative. We'll have to risk being like, bloody hell, I got that wrong and I'm going to have to take action on that. Or, you know, like I was barking up the wrong tree there, or I made a mistake, I failed, that was the wrong decision. We'll have to risk that, you know. But also, Like, this is my job, right? I literally work with people I'm having to play the game and toe the line every single day of how can I tell this person what they need to hear without upsetting them. I need to say it in a compassionate way, but I have to make that commitment. This is it's like a law I live my life by. I cannot lie to this person. I certainly don't have to be a dickhead and say, hey, well, you're the reason you're stuck in the emotional eating cycle. You're the one who's in control of this. You just need to get out of it. I'm not saying that. What I will say is, like, there's been many things that's got you to this point. Let's look at what role you're playing in this here over here. Let's look at some of the things that you're not playing in terms of the role over here. Environmental issues. Let's create as much, let me create as much compassion and empathy for them as possible for the things that were outside of their control, and say, listen, stop blaming yourself for this. Try and release this baggage. Like, let go of these attachments, because this was not your fault. But these little things over here, I'm not going to say the word fault, but they are your responsibility.
Yeah.
So we've got to break it down a little bit. It's not just like you've got to do it all yourself, or everything's everyone else's job. And again, it's that black or white thinking. It's not the nuanced thinking. It's either someone's coming to save me or it's all down to me. How about both? How about there will be people who can help you, but also there's parts of things that you need to do as well? I'm not sure if that answered your question, but
yeah, no,
get the idea.
So the next thing I want to talk about is a moral crisis in life, because you mentioned it. We've had several conversations over the years, and the one thing that keeps coming up is the moral crisis in people's values and standards these days. Do you think we have outdated values in today's society? Do you think what some people are still trying to claim, say even some religious organizations and religious beliefs and stuff like that, like, do you think people are sticking to old ways? Do you think we're moving into a new form of human evolution in terms of values and standards in society? Like, where do you sit on the spectrum?
I don't know if it's necessarily new. I think it's manifesting with new things because we have more stuff now and technological advancements, and social media really was a game changer, because now public opinions can be swept around the world instantly, whereas back in the day it wasn't. It took a long time for societies to change and values to change. It had to be done through word of mouth, right? That's not done anymore. But if you study like the collapse of Rome, similar things are happening now, because when things get so good, like we've talked about this before, is it like hard times create tough men or strong men create good times, good times create weak men, weak men create hard times. So we're in a cycle right now. So I think we're coming up to the end of a cycle where things are going to get worse before they get better. Yeah. And I think we're seeing like a lot of like eye-opening things going on, where I think, talk to any generation, they'll always say, like, oh, the kids of today. Or, but we're that age now where we're approaching, well, I'm 30, you're approaching 30. We can look at teenagers now and be like, bloody hell, there's a bit of, like, what's going on with them?
I've started doing that now, I'm 29, I'm right? Like, looking at it, like...
So it's very cyclical. So it's natural for people who are slightly older to look at what's coming up and go, oh my God, that's terrible. That's normal, But I think we all can sit here and say, like, yeah, the values of, especially Western culture, a bit weird now. Like, the things that we're saying is okay, that never used to be okay, is a bit mad. The things that we're just allowing to happen and not speak up about is a bit mad, So when you say, oh, there's a moral crisis, I don't know if it's a moral crisis now. I think people are just lacking a lot of meaning.
It's also a lot of too tolerant of some things, I think.
Maybe. I just also think we're massively distracted. I think because we're massively distracted, people can't focus on things that are meaningful. Also go in the deep end as well, just about the economy. Like the economy now, it's talk about like a family. It takes a mum and dad to both work in order to be able to pay the bills. That's a fairly new phenomenon. 1960s, 70s, 80s. Before that, it was like one works, one looks after the children. Yep. So like, I don't necessarily think we're in a moral crisis right now. I think just people are so overwhelmed and burnt out that they struggle to know what their values are, even have time to have values. So they're just like I say, burnt out. So they're just lacking a lot of meaning because life's just taken up with work and bills and, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy,
Yeah, it's like when, like we said kind of before, where you've got a lack of purpose and a lack of meaning, you're going to find stuff to be angry about, offended about, and because there's nothing else for you to put your time and energy into. Yeah. It's like I'm busy with a lot of this podcast stuff. I do a lot of stuff for TST here as well. Like that's on my mind like 24/7. I'm always like, how's the next podcast going to go? Who's the next guest? What am I going to do with the client care? Like I'm constantly thinking about this, or I'm like, when's the next time I'm going to schedule it to see my friends or whatever? Like that's my life. And that's what I want to do with my time. That's where my focus goes. But I think a lot of people have too much of that gap to just fill with like Facebook comments and residence pages. One of my favorite things to rant about, And I'm just like, people need a deeper sense of me. It doesn't have to be like changing the world or doing a podcast or impacting everybody's lives. It's just something that is just a little bit more meaningful than just I'm on Facebook.
So great. I was listening to Jimmy Carr, actually, the comedian, on a podcast yesterday with Joe Rogan. Funny enough, I posted about it, right? Jimmy Carr, very intelligent guy. Can't believe
so profound.
I've listened to some of his podcasts before, but honestly, like, I've really paid attention to this one. He's very, very intelligent.
Yeah.
But you've got to be a comedian. To be funny, you've got to know what lands. You've got to set up punchlines. You've got to what works. You've got to read the room. You've got to have your timing. With your speaking. You've got to be comfortable with silences. Like, you've got to be an intelligent person to be a comedian, right?
Yes.
But he's very, very intelligent, and he said something that, like, it's been mirroring kind of something I've thought about for a while now. He said, we don't stop playing because we get old. We get old because we stop playing. And his concept was about how it's the most natural thing, right, to play as humans. That's our love language when we are kids, right? If you stumble in on kids just playing a game in a house or your nursery or something, or even in the park, you will see them and they're in their own little world, right? Come back to Dr. John DeMartini again. He says, like, play is the ultimate act of human creativity. And when we're creative as humans, we are actually living from the frontal cortex. That's the brain firing at its best. So in order to play, we have to feel safe. That means we're out of fight or flight. Adults aren't doing that anymore because we get so busy, we forget to play. Now, we're not going to get our toys out and play like kids, but what it represents is self-soothing in the most natural, creative way possible.
It's the inner child coming out. Yeah.
Inner child, yeah, nurturing the inner child. So Jimmy Carr was saying, like, we just need to play more, whether that's going to a comedian gig, whether that's just having a sport or a hobby, whether that's just belly laughing with your friends, whether that's, like, play. That's what we're here for. We're here to play, right? Because the world is so fast-paced right now, and both parents have got to work, and, it's all about paying bills, and everyone, you're on social media, and you're caring about what everyone thinks about you, and everyone's materialistic and, stuck in consumer mindset, or in debt, or this. Everyone's forgetting to play. So because we're lacking creativity, we're struggling with meaning in our life. So when he said that yesterday, I'm like, yeah, people are getting old before their time because they're just stuck in fight or flight. They're not playing. Playing is what heals the brain. That's actually what a lot of Gabor Mate talks about this. Gabor Mate, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Dr. John DeMartini talks about this. But play is healing. That's how you heal from your traumas. You play more. You sit down or you relax. You laugh, you have fun, you switch off, you connect with something that's meaningful. You go, wow, that was an amazing way to spend my time.
It's funny, isn't it? I like to ask people, when was the last time you cried laughing? And most people go, oh, I can't remember.
Every week.
Mate, I love...
all the time.
Here in the office, just me and Luke pissing ourselves.
Exactly.
Do you know one thing that got me laughing? And I want everyone to go away and look this up because it's so immature and ridiculous, but I found it hilarious. And it's this guy on TikTok, and he basically, you call it a discus, where you spin on the thing and then fling it. So he does it with a speaker.
Yeah.
But when he passes the microphone with the speaker, when he's spinning, the sound just is so distorted. And then he just flings this, like, he did it's a Gravity from Wicked or whatever it is. And it's just, like, hilarious to hear it. But me and my brother were sat in a hotel in London the other week, and we were just pissing ourselves laughing at, like, the comments and stuff, like, but crying laughing,
No. Do you know it's been proven that more oxytocin, I believe, gets released, or maybe serotonin, when you're belly laughing with someone, like, when you literally can't even breathe, you're just absolutely in stitches with someone you love or appreciate.
It just feels great.
That releases more serotonin and oxytocin than, like, a SSRI pill in that moment. Mm-hmm. Like,
it's natural as well.
It's a natural happy chemical. It's a neurotransmitter. So we create our own mental health by the way we live our life. That's the whole Dr. John DeMartini method. It's like your mental health, as well as from a chemical point of view, the brain chemistry is impacted by environment and the way you live your life, not the other way around. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about, is there a crisis of moral right now? No, I don't think there is a moral crisis. I think that's a side effect of people just living in a state of crisis in general. I think in the modern world, we're more distracted than ever, more divided than ever, faster paced than ever. Like Tony Robbins also mentioned this, that we see more information now in one day than a human did 10,000 years ago in one lifetime, in like an 80-year lifetime. So think of like every advert you listen to on the radio, every social media post you see, every photo you see, all the people around you. Like, we're only designed to live in groups of people of about 40, 50. And now we've got the entire world in our mind on a screen. It's like, what our bodies aren't designed for this. So I think we're in a physiological crisis, which is manifesting as a mental health crisis, So I think people are just lacking meaning, and let's define meaning. Play. If you've got something to play, you have fun, you switch off, you relax. It makes the hard times easier to manage.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing I've made a change in my life right now is my hobbies are just as important as work. You know what I did this morning, 5 a.m.?
What'd you do?
Went fishing for 3 hours.
Nice. Catch
It was
anything good?
I did, yeah. It was great. That's my little solitude hobby.
That's dinner sorted
Yeah.
for us then, guys.
No, it's freshwater fishing, not seafood.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Later.
Anyways, that's my little hobby. I also have kayaking. I also love going on my bike. I spend time with my girlfriend. Like I said, belly laughing. We do that all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Just have so much fun. Just make each other laugh. She's dead funny. My girlfriend, dead funny in her own little way.
Who's the funniest?
It's just
You or her?
different, I mean, don't get us wrong. I do definitely make her laugh all the time. So sometimes I think when I try and make people laugh, I don't. But when I
to try hard, you mean?
Yeah, when I'm just me and I'm silly, it makes people laugh. You know what I mean? So she'd probably say me, but she is funny as well. She does make us laugh.
Yeah, I love that. So the next thing I wanted to bring up with you is, because obviously we're talking about who can you listen to these days, and we're looking so much on social media of what we see. I want to talk about these alpha male podcasts, right? So obviously, I mean, there's loads of people you can name, but you'll see them, and sometimes you don't even know the name. You just recognize the faces on Instagram and TikTok now. So do you think these are the modern philosophers of masculinity? Do you think they're doing it just to be cool? Like, where is there some level of truth to what these guys say at all, do you think?
Maybe a little bit, but like this incel culture, this alpha male culture, I think it's...
Well, do you know what incel stands for?
Yeah, involuntary celibacy. Yeah.
How nuts is that though? But that goes hand in hand with another movement of the MGTOW movement. Do you know that one?
Yeah, men going their own way.
Yeah, like it's, if you actually listen to anything these people say, it's like the problem is, it's like they've took things that are in human nature, in female nature, and then just blew it up times 10. So it's like something that is...
I don't agree with any of it. Yeah.
Some of it at all, none of the... Go and listen to it, right? Because you can see a lot of the time where they're coming from in men's behavior and women's behavior. But then you're like, okay, well, now you've just took this point and added steroids to it, added HGH, and just blown it up as a massive deal.
Yeah, it's not good. So we can sit here and say, like, the first wave feminism in the 50s and 60s, 100% valid, needed. I'm shocked, actually, at how, disgusting men treat women in the past. It's like, that's not good. I've got sisters, I've got a mum, I've got a girlfriend. Like, I've worked with so many women.
Yeah,
I've got friends who are women. That makes me feel ashamed, But let's be honest, that feminist movement, it got to a point of equality and was like, yeah, great. And then it just tiptoed into like, you become what you hated, right? And now I call them feminazis, which is basically like these extreme ideological feminists
who are just the blue hairs,
who are just man haters, right? Well, the alpha male stuff is it's just the male equivalent of it. It's so what we're doing here. So back to that concept of divide and conquer, you just got extreme ends of these political polarity spectrums, just all arguing with each other, and we've got people like us in the middle who are like, hang on a second, this is a bit weird. So yeah, I've heard some of these alpha male podcasts, and I'm like, listen, these guys are doing it because they know young kids who are disillusioned right now. I remember being a disillusioned young man as well, and I probably would have fell for all of that crap as well. Like, people talk about Andrew Tate. I don't think Andrew Tate believes in 90% of the stuff he posts. I think he posts it because it gets attention and it gathers leads into his business, and he makes sales, and it's just a form of brainwashing. And the funny thing about like these alpha male podcasts, they'll say things like, men aren't designed to be monogamous, that's like, we talked about this last time, the scattergun method of like, they're supposed to breed with as many women as possible, because that's what we evolutionary designed for. I'm like, right, maybe the king of the tribe was, because he could, but you're not. Look at the clip of you. Like, you need to settle. You need to settle for that plain Jane.
You need a fucking good woman in your life, bro.
You need to shut the fuck up, So, yeah. So a lot of these people are going along with, like, these alpha male things. I'm like, well, you're not a fucking alpha male, so shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
You know what
I
mean?
But do you know what it is? They peddle the term high value man, right? Who the fuck is given this definition of a high value?
I don't know.
What would you define as a high value man?
I think the way they're defining it is, like, really good looking, like, physically attractive, tall, a lot of money, a lot of resources, very competent, very intelligent, strong character, leadership qualities. Fair enough, right?
Yeah.
But again, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. So the value is just, it's not designed by what you think value is. It's designed, but it's based off what the market thinks. So I could launch a product in my business right now, right, and say, right, I'm creating this new course, and no one buys it. And then I go, oh, fucking hell, it's so valuable. Why do people not? So it's not about what I think, it's about what people think. I've learned this in business as well. I've tried to sell products what I thought people needed, didn't buy it. And then I've created products based off what I asked. What do you think you need? made me a fucking fortune.
Yeah, but it's like you look at what was attractive in society. I mean, if you walked around nowadays with an open flared shirt, high collar, your chest hair out in a medallion, you'd get laughed at, right? But back in like the 60s and 70s, oh yeah, want a bit of that.
Market,
do you know what I mean?
The market dictates the value, yeah. So again, I just think this whole alpha male over here, feminazi over here, it's a part of this ideological extreme polarity.
But why do you think men and women are at this point where they need to slag each other off or be at war with each other almost?
Because when you have unintegrated traumas, you haven't dealt with the unresolved shit in your life, you point the finger and you blame. And then you end up becoming what you hate. You're becoming what you hate. So this alpha male incel movement started as a reaction to this extreme feminist movement who, let's be honest, they're misandrists, aren't they? They hate men. It's obvious. They're not feminists, right? The man haters, okay? Then over here, you've got these alpha males who are standing up for men. They're not. They're misogynists. You're just becoming what you hate. You are just the same thing manifesting as a different gender.
Yeah.
So that's why we need to address the psychology behind it, which is you're not integrating your own past traumas because you're holding hate and resentment in your heart. And when you hold hate and resentment in your heart, you point the finger.
Yeah.
So I'm not a fan of these alpha male shit, and I'm not a fan of these extreme feminist shit either. I'm a fan of people having very, very balanced conversations and looking at what they actually agree with. Yeah. If you actually have most conversation with most people, you'll find that you agree on most things. Like, do we agree that, I don't know, the fire department should be funded by the government? Yeah. So if your house burns down, you'll go, right, fire brigade, please. Have you paid your bill? You paid your fire bill? No? Well, we're not coming, right? We agree, right?
Yeah.
We agree that also that we should protect children. Yes. In schools. Yeah, right, okay. I could go on and on. We agree with most stuff.
I was just like, no, and then this podcast just evolved.
But we agree with most stuff,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
Most people who you're having disagreements with, and you're like, oh, I hate this movement, or whether it's online or in person, if you actually sat down and had a conversation about what you value in the world, you'd probably realise that you agree on more stuff than you disagree with.
Yeah.
But we don't talk about that. It's just about throwing shit at each other. So I think these movements online, whether it's man, women, alpha male, feminist, it's about the individual having unintegrated traumas. They are not emotionally intelligent and they are latching onto an ideology because it's easier to do that and point the finger than it is to look at your own self and go, what am I not doing right now?
Yeah.
And I keep coming back to that point. It's the whole shadow concept by Carl Jung.
Well, both of the extreme feminist side and the both misogynist side, I guess you could call it, there's truth in both sides of it when they call out the behaviors of the opposite sex. The problem is when you demonize it, because it's like playing a board game and then just completely hating on the rules and refusing to play. It's like, that's the rules. That's how we're wired. That's how we're built. You either deal with it and do the best you can with it and try to understand it a little bit better, or you just, like we said, that men go their own way. They swear off women altogether because they demonize female nature.
Well,
or some
sad.
of the...
That's
it
sad
is.
Because
it
I
is.
think men need women and I think women need men.
Yeah.
And I think we're happier when we're connected.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I disagree with that. Like, I don't think they're men who are saying they don't need women, they're just a headache, they're this, they're that. I was like, maybe the ones you are picking. But there's loads of, I'd say 90% of women are fantastic. 90% of men are probably also fantastic. But this is a part of this lack of emotional intelligence. We cannot see the extreme ends of the spectrum is not a representation of the, like, how sad is it that we're actually defining like men and women as like, men are over there, women are over there, and that's what people do now. We're putting them in boxes. That's so dangerous. That's tyrannical thinking.
Yeah.
And it goes against everything they're claiming to be, which is tolerant and open-minded, and it's like you're being the opposite. Like, there's so much difference and nuance between people. Like I say, we should have conversations around what we actually agree with rather than what we disagree with, but we don't do that.
Yeah, well, I think this whole there's a guy online I love him. He puts like a filter on. He like stands like this with his triangle hands, and he's like talking about like how many figures he makes a quarter and like all of these bitches and hoes and stuff.
That's just peacocking. You know?
Well, so, he's obviously taking the piss out of these fucking.
Fair enough.
He's
right?
like,
so he's doing it for satire.
Yeah. But I'm like, what's funny is they take the piss out of like because I think every man secretly deep down wants to have a little bit of that lifestyle or a taste of that to some degree, like money, admiration, competence. They want that a little bit. But it's like when it's pushed as if like if you don't have this, you're a piece of shit. That's when I have a problem with it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So in terms of like the things that we were, because I was talking to you about the phone, we were saying like the whole gender debate and the religious debate and everything like that. Why do you think we label certain things as taboo, and when do you think it's appropriate to start talking about these things a little bit more?
back to my previous point, I don't think anything should be taboo and off limits, because how can we learn how these things may manifest in society if we're not aware of them?
Yeah.
You know, again, I keep coming back to Carl Jung, say the same thing, but he's like, if you wanna like understand like good and evil, you've got to be aware of it. Like, evil exists. There's some evil people out there. So if we say, oh, you're not allowed to talk about that, evil will manifest in the darkness in the background unchecked, and it'll come out in subtle ways. So that's why we should be allowed to talk about anything, and we should use our own critical thinking skills to be like, yeah, that's crap, don't believe that, believe this instead, and here's why you should, and here's why I think you should believe that, and here's my points, and you know, and let people make up their own mind. It's actually insulting when you think about it, that we've brainwashed people to think that they can't make up their own mind. It's like, what, you saying I'm not capable of having my own thoughts?
Yeah.
So I think nothing should be taboo.
Well, you mentioned something to me about weight loss apparently now being racist, which when I was like, where do people get these ideas from?
I did a bit of research on this. So apparently in colonial times, which I believe is the 1700s, when the transatlantic slave trade happened in America, obviously terrible thing. No one's sitting here condoning that. But what I will also say is slaves have been around forever, and every single race has been persecuted. And if you actually want to go down the rabbit hole about who created the transatlantic slave trade, is basically the war chiefs in African tribes rounded up their own people and then sold them to the Europeans. So hey, it wasn't just like people from England got off on boats and got their harpoons out and just like,
which is what a lot of people think.
That's what they think. That's not what happened. They sold their own people to the white elites, right? So there's that. So a lot of people who have the argument of like, you know, there should be reparations for slave trade. It's like, well, who started it? It was their own people, right? Just like our leaders in England of 1,000 years ago also had slaves who were their own people. Like, every single race has persecuted their own race and other races. That's everyone. We can sit here and go on about it all day long. In fact, it's still going on in Africa right now. Libya is like, they have open slave trades on bloody YouTube, you know, because they've got no government and everything's terrible. So slaves still exist now. In fact, apparently there's more slavery now than there was back in the transatlantic slave trade of the 1700s. Anyways, weight loss being racist, let's get back to that. So apparently it was because the standard at the time was white and European equals beautiful, and that was the standard for women of beauty, right? So again, whether they actually said the opposite, which may be what, big and black, African, whatever, that race is ugly. Whether they actually said that or not, I don't know. But because of the fact that apparently they said white and European and slim is beautiful, they may have just put two and two together and again got 55 million and said, well, that means the opposite is also true. So you're saying to be black is to be ugly, to be... I don't know if that happened, but apparently that's the narrative, that the standard back then was that to be thin, to be white, and to be European means you are beautiful. So anything separate to that is upholding this narrative that anything outside of that is racist, right? So you're racist if you pursue that. So people lump that together, which again is a terrible thing. Slave trade was a terrible thing. There was certainly racism that existed at the time and right now, But to make that link between, so if white and thin was the standard, that means if I am a different race, let's say black or African American or African or whatever, or Asian or whatever, and I'm overweight, that means I'm ugly. That means weight loss is racist. And say, how did it get from that to that? So you took a real thing, some real crap, like horrible crap from history, that was real, transatlantic slave trade, beauty, European standards, you know, maybe demonizing others, that existed. But in the modern world, to say anyone who wants to go after weight loss, there was actual Instagram. You can find these Instagram influencers.
You sent me one of them.
Yeah, obviously that's from America. I don't think this is happening in England. This is American, right? So the African American is a part of the African American community who are very ideologically captured by this sort of like virtue signaling behavior. So it's like this weird side aspect of the body positivity movement, which is not just body positivity, it's African American body positivity, and it's demonizing anyone who chooses to lose weight. You are upholding traditional racist values. So a traditional racist value was to say, in order to be worthy, you have to be white and skinny. So if you are black and overweight, that means you're not good enough. So it's like you've got one thing that's historically accurate, they said that, and then you've just completely manufactured it and made that up to now create this. That's moronic.
It's weird that we do this in society. We find one dot, and then we find a dot a million miles away and connect them and somehow make a point out of it. I don't. Why do you think we do that? What do we get from this behavior?
Well, it's easier to blame the world than it is to take responsibility. So that's what I think that is, right? If you're someone who is unhappy with your life and you're not doing anything about it, it's easier to find a bogeyman than it is to look in the mirror.
Yeah.
So I think that's what a lot of this, it's virtue signaling, you know?
How, here's a thought experiment for you. You know how we always talk about, like, how far we've evolved, right? When we stopped evolving, and then what humans used to live like, and how we're actually built and designed to live, right? Hunter-gatherer type stuff, right? Do you think we were ever supposed to, just hypothetically, do you think we were ever supposed to live as we do now and have access to this much level of thought of ourselves?
No, we're not designed for that. Like I said before, humans are designed to be in small tribes. We don't have the brains that are capable. Like, we're not supposed to be seeing wars streamed on BBC News channel at 6 a.m. when we're getting ready for work. We're not supposed to be accessible to 1 million people who can message us at once on an app. You know, we're not supposed to see these things.
Yeah.
So I don't think from a nervous system perspective we are able to deal with that, and I think it creates a lot of anxiety, a lot of angst, a lot of overwhelm, a lot of fear of, like, judgment and criticism, and I don't think we're designed from it physiologically.
It's funny because I was checking out. I mean, I think going back maybe a month or two now, I was finding myself in a really weird headspace. Like, I could not for the life of me focus. I was so uninteresting to talk to, and I was struggling to actually make conversation. I was like, what is going on in my head? I could feel this, like, cloudiness. And then Luke was saying something on a call, and they were talking about screen time, and I thought, I haven't looked at my screen time for ages. And this was on a Wednesday, I remember, because I looked at my screen time for the day before. Guess what my screen time was? 8.5 hours. Yeah. 8.5 hours I'd had my phone out that day, and I was like, this is nuts. So
I'll see that link as well, yeah.
I started turning my phone off during the day. I started putting timers on my apps, and you know what happened? Surprise, surprise. Started to feel better.
So I've got a client, you might even listen to this, you'll know who I'm talking about. I've got multiple clients, actually, who I don't have to worry about their food, and that might sound mad being an emotional eating coach. I know their food will be fine when they have boundaries with their social media usage because they're not getting triggered. Because that's what I found after analysing them, working with them for so long, seeing the patterns and themes. I'm like, right, you only binge when you scroll on your phone, you compare your life to other people, you get brainwashed by these beauty standards that your algorithm's trained to send you because it wants you to buy products based off your insecurities. That's what bloody algorithms were made for. To harvest your data so it can sell your products back. That's what it, based off your insecurities, harvest your data, based off your insecurities, sell you stuff that it knows you want, because people buy from emotion, not from logic. So if you go on your phone, you're going to see things that trigger you. If you see things that trigger you, it's going to impact you emotionally. If you're impacted emotionally, you're more likely to turn to food for comfort. So I made the link after testing this out. When she had a set screen time that she was sticking to and I was holding her accountable to it, the emotional eating went way down. When she didn't have any barriers, and I'm like, hang on, you binged last night, okay, can you send me a screenshot of your screen time yesterday? Every single time, whoop, way up what it was. I'm like, there you go. So do we need to talk about the food, or do we need to talk about what's preventing or what's likely to prevent you from taking the action of overeating or emotionally eating? You know? So screen time, not just screen time, because my phone says 8-9 hours a day, right? But I'm not scrolling for 8-9 hours a day.
Yeah, it's what you
I'm
do.
answering WhatsApps, I'm creating content, but I still do scroll a little bit. And I notice myself when I'm on my phone less, I feel better.
You just feel there's a sense of calm and clarity that I almost forgot that I could feel. It was bizarre because I was like, I put my phone in my room and I went and sat on the step outside because it was like, obviously we've been having nice weather and stuff, and I was just sat there in the sun like, I can't remember the last time I felt this peaceful. And away from it was just that minute. I mean, I wasn't deep in the wilderness, you know. I was just on my front step, you know. But I was just 100%. Like, this peace.
The easiest
nice.
way to calm the nervous system is to just slow down.
Yeah.
And if you're scrolling and you're frantic and you're like you might not be moving fast and running fast, but your brain's working fast. You're like, oh, read this post, read that, see that image. You're fast. Your brain's like boom, 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 boom. It freaks you out, man. You'll be more anxious, and it'll manifest really subtly. Like, it doesn't mean you're going through this crisis in your life. Like, I remember feeling deeply depressed in my life, and I mean, I didn't have a lot going on. I can talk. I opened up about it last time about the root causes, the 7 voids, all that sort of stuff. Listen to that other podcast. I'm not going to it now. But one of the main things that I noticed was impact my mental health the most was I was just like looking at what everyone else was doing online, because how can you possibly be looking at what everyone else is doing online and living your life on your terms at the same time? You can't have both.
Yeah.
So literally, let's just make the agreement right now. Yes, it's an assumption. Rather, let's make the assumption, but it's obvious to see. To be honest, it's not just an assumption. I think it's fact that the higher amount that you're on Facebook, looking at what everyone else is doing, the less likely you are to be doing things that you want to do in your life, because you can't be doing both. You can't be making moves, making a business, having, wonderful, amazing connection with your partner, having fun with your kids, being present, belly laughing, playing games, having fun, and scrolling your phone at the same time.
Yeah.
You can't be doing two things at once. So let's just make that kind of goal, all of us right now, to say, right, the less I spend wasting time on my phone, the better my mental health's going to be. I think that's a very easy law, if you will, to live by in your own life, like your own personal law. Like, this is something I live my life by.
Yeah.
It's a what's the word I'm looking for? An
It's just
ethic,
a standard.
a value,
Yeah,
a standard. It's a standard. It's a requirement. I'm going to live my life by looking at my screen time and going, I notice that when it creeps up, I start to feel a bit shit.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't have to overthink it. I just have to make that association. It's obvious, right? So let's do something about it.
Yeah.
That's one of the best advice I'd give to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Get off your fucking phone, man.
It makes such a difference. And I think, they say comparison is the thief of joy. I believe that to an extent, but I also think it creates seeds of opportunity as well, because you can use it as an influence or you can use it as to push you down. Because I look at people who are maybe fitness influencers, and I can take it one of two ways. I can go, well, you've got massive biceps, I'll never get there, I'm a piece of shit, go down that rabbit hole. Or I can go, you know what, he's training hard, what can I learn from this guy? And I might never get there, but I can get close. It's like there's a mindset shift that has to happen there, but you have to catch yourself before you start going down rabbit holes. Like we said earlier, emotional intelligence. Realize when you're going to start going down a rabbit hole, realize what sends you down that rabbit hole, and then cut it off.
Let's just define that, because we've said it a few times, right? Emotional intelligence. What do I mean by that? It means about being aware of your own flaws. Not like I'm perfect and I'm clever and I'm academic. That's academic intelligence that you learn at school. I'm not talking about that. Emotional intelligence is essentially self-awareness. So to have that perspective where you can say, I can see something that I don't have and go, oh, I'm inspired by that. It takes self-awareness, it takes self-awareness to recognize that. Whereas if you don't have that, I guess a simpler way to define it is you have a glass half full attitude or a glass half empty. I used to be a glass half empty attitude, and I realized how bad that made me feel. And when I become aware of how dark and cynical I was towards the world, other people and myself, I was like, that's holding me back. So I worked on my ability to be more grateful. I worked on my ability to compare in more positive ways. I started taking action. And I realized, wow, I am capable. I'm not this waste of space. I am fairly intelligent. I am I do have talents. I am capable.
Yeah.
And you become competent, right? But if you're not doing anything with your life and you're not taking action, and then you compare yourself to people, you'll be triggered.
That's when the rabbit hole starts.
If you are taking action and you are becoming competent, you are being honest with yourself and you are creating self-awareness, and you're like, I'm not going to blame the world for how I feel. I'm going to look at me and see what I need to do for me. You'll see something that you might compare yourself to, where you're not there, they're there, you're there, but you'll be like, what do I do to get where they are? You'll have a totally different attitude, and that glass half full approach and that more optimistic mindset comes as a result of taking responsibility for the role that you're playing in your own suffering.
Yeah.
And I think that is the key to mental health. I don't think you can have a mental health awakening until you sit there and go, this is what is my fault, and I need to sit and work on this. Over here, I can definitely blame, but I'm going to choose not to. Just because you can blame something doesn't mean you should. But you can, but it doesn't mean that you should lead with that.
Yeah.
And that's what I say with my clients. It's like, listen, there's many things that we could sit here and blame, and I'm not denying any of them. I'm not invalidating any of them. But where has it got you? You are unhappy.
Yes.
You are miserable. You are depressed. You are really struggling with your mental health. So what do you want to do about this? Do you want to continue going down the same narrative of the way I am is everyone else's fault? Or do I want to say, well, what I've been through has severely impacted me. There's many things that have happened to me that weren't my fault at all. And I've got many reasons to blame. But what about what I'm not taking action on? What about what I'm not dealing with?
What about kind you can control as well?
What about what I can control that I'm not controlling? And only when we make that switch in my mind will we stop doing things like comparing ourselves negatively to other people, looking to escape and distract ourselves. We'll just be more aware, Well,
it's not just aware of, like you said, obviously your own emotions and becoming more like understanding of how you work, but also understanding the patterns that you'll start to recognize in other people. Because one of the best bits of relationship advice that I remember I got from years ago was obviously men have this habit of trying to fix a woman's problems straight off, right? One of the best pieces of advice I was ever given was if your partner comes home as a man and she says to you, like, she starts ranting about her day and she's got a problem, try and see whether she just wants to vent or whether she wants to problem. Did I? Yeah. It's just one of the best pieces of advice, because like you can ask them, just be like, I'm going to stop you there. Do you need me to vent? Do you need a vent, or do you need me to fix the problem? And 90% of the time, I just need to fucking rage.
So talking about being self-aware, I had to look at myself and go, like, that's my fault. I can't sit here and blame, like, oh, why am I trying to solve the problem and she doesn't want to listen? Because that's happened many times. As any man in a relationship with a woman will know, there's been
and you'll
times,
not get it right 100% of the time. No.
But I had to sit there and go, that's my fault. I can't sit here and die on that hill of, well, this is what's logical. I have to sit there and be like, I'm not listening. I'm not reading the room. That used to trigger me when my girlfriend used to say that. Read the room. I'm like, I'm not a fucking mind reader. Why should I have to do that? But I'm like, actually, like I said, talk about integrating your own darkness, your own negative traits. One of mine is I would hide my judgments in the advice that I give.
That's interesting.
So to avoid being the feeling of, oh, I'm judging someone, because no one likes to feel like that. Well, that's, that's what your shadow is, right? It's all of the repressed aspects of yourself that you fail to see in yourself that you project in others. So a lot of people hide things, right? They play mental gymnastics to hide it from themselves. But that's just ego, right? That's what ego is. So I realized, like, instead of, like, dealing with why I was judging in my mind, like, why am I judging her behavior, or anyone's behavior for that matter, or what I don't agree with, or what I don't like, I would wrap it up in advice. So in a relationship setting, instead of being like, I think you should be doing this, I think you should be doing that, or I don't agree with this because I was too frightened to have the conversation, I would be like, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And it never worked, because in that moment I wasn't listening to what she actually wanted. So I had to put listen, if you hear something you don't agree with, you'll judge it. It's not a problem to judge something, to make a judgment.
We all make judgments and snap judgments.
If I don't agree with something, fine. But I have to also say, well, I don't have to be right. So that's what that come from. So I felt like I had to be right all the time. And if I wasn't, I would judge. But then I would hide that judgment and wrap it up as like, oh, I'm just giving you advice, fuck off. That was me being a narcissistic dickhead. I don't know how else to describe it. So I had to, like, deal with that within me. Everyone's got this inner narcissist, right, that wants to be right and thinks they know better, and everyone has that within them. Stop lying and saying you don't. Everyone's got an ego. Everyone's narcissistic to a certain degree. It just manifests as different ways. Everyone thinks they know best in certain things, right? And sometimes you have to accept, I don't know what's best, and even if I do, it's not my place to project that onto other people.
And there's always a layer that you never see as well. It could make the most sense what you've just said to them, and then they'll pull out something like that is another layer of the cake, and you're like, okay, that makes more sense now, and you're like, then it just obliterates your argument. So
well, basically, just be willing to be wrong, be willing to not have to be right all the time, be willing to not have to speak your mind sometimes. I know that contradicts what I said before about being able to stand up for yourself. That's different.
It's picking and choosing your battles, though.
Picking and choosing your battles, picking your battles.
There's a time and a place to bring it. Like I always go back to there's a story I've told loads of times. It was like this guy that I used to know, and one of his things was he would try and be more authentic, and he would try and put himself out there more, which is a good thing. And we took him to a comedy show gig, and he would laugh overly loud every time, and his laugh would extend past where people stopped laughing at the joke.
Yeah, and you can tell that's forced, can't you?
Yeah, and then when we confronted him, it was like, well, I'm just being authentic. It was just my laugh. And I'm like, yeah, but A, it's fucking not. And B, you're also ruining people's experience of this. You're like making it all about you when there's other people in the room.
So I think people who are, let's say, they've worked on themselves, they've become aware of their own dark side, and they realize that, hey, I've humbled myself, I'm not perfect, I have many flaws, and I'm aware of them, and I'm working on them. You develop this intuition like a bullshit radar. You now become immune from bullshit. Like, you can sense people, you can sense who's authentic, you can sense who's not. Whereas when you're not being authentic, you also can't tell when others are not being authentic, So, your bullshit, when you start doing the work on yourself, your bullshit radar will start going off, and you're like, actually, I'm not falling for that crap anymore. Something tells me that that's not true. I'm not going to go along with that. But then you'll also be able to call yourself out and be like, I'm completely bullshitting here, aren't I? Why am I saying this? Why am I thinking this? How's this? what's my role in this thing that's not worked out? What am I to blame
Yeah.
for? You'll have this bullshit radar where you'll be able to sense bullshit in other people, but also in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I try and humble myself every single day because I'm aware of my own dark side, and we all have this need to be significant and to be liked, and that
Mm-hmm.
need to be significant and to be liked has caused me to alter my persona in ways that wasn't authentic whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't like that about
Well,
myself.
that's
In
what I was
fact,
going to say about this guy.
I hated it about myself.
Yeah, it's like we obviously called him out on it, but then at the end of the day, I was like, well, what's causing him to be? It wasn't just like, well, we know you're bullshitting.
It's feeling
but
insecure.
But yeah, it was like, what's causing him to do that? And it was taking a more empathetic approach and stuff as well to it, not just an instant judgment of, well, we know you're not being authentic.
Yeah.
We can see through your bullshit, but it's like, why does he feel the need to do that? What causing that? What is he trying to achieve?
Yeah.
It like a little bit more understanding with people, I think. But I think a lot of people just won't do that depth of work into something.
It's uncomfortable. It's where people don't want to look at themselves. It's easier to look at the world and go, here's what I think's a problem, than it is to go, there's definitely some problems outside, but let's turn it around. What's wrong with me?
I believe is it called lateral thinking? Is that what they call it?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Yeah, nice man. So, as my final question to you, mate, because last time when you were on the show, I didn't have this question in my repertoire, and it's something that I ask every guest that comes on, because I think it's probably... The answer always surprises me every time I get someone on. So the question is quite simply, do you consider yourself a success?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. I mean, define success.
That's up to you. Do you consider yourself a success?
No, because I'm nowhere near where I want to be. And I think that's exciting. I think the moment you define yourself as I'm a success, you're going to stop being hungry. You ever heard of this silk sheets analogy?
No.
So you know Marvin Hagler?
No.
He was a boxer. He's unfortunately passed away now. He's like one of the best boxers of all time from the 80s, right?
Okay.
His fight with Tommy Hearns is like... is it Tommy Hearns? No. Yeah. Anyway, Hearns Hagler. Great fight. Anyways, he used to train... multi-millionaire, middleweight champion of the world in the 80s and maybe late 80s. And when he used to go for a fight camp, he used to take himself up to the mountains somewhere in America, live on his own or very close, or maybe he was coaching someone else, he's a nutritionist, and he used to go outside in the snow, run every single day, like basically like, Rocky IV montage when he goes to rush hour and like he does
he's in the snow pulling logs.
That's from Marvin Hagler. That was the inspiration.
Oh, okay, nice.
So it's like, and the analogy used, like, I don't want to wake up, I'm not going to win the world championship if I wake up in silk sheets. Meaning that when you get so sophisticated and you tell yourself you're a success, I've experienced this in my own life, just in my own business and whatnot. When I got too comfortable, I stopped being as hungry. And when I stopped being as hungry, I made mistakes and I got complacent. Mm-hmm. So I'm very reluctant to say, like, I am success and I'm the best thing since sliced bread, because that was my dark side creeping back in, which then causes me to take my eye off the ball, which then puts me back in a dark place mentally. So no, I don't want to define myself as success because I want to stay hungry. I don't want to tell myself. And that's not about like being some sort of sadomasochist or whatever who's like,
I need more pain and suffering before I'm a success.
It's not that at all. It's just like, do I like myself better than who I used to be? Yes. Do I believe I'm on the right path? I absolutely do. Mm-hmm. Do I think I've got a lot of work to do? Yeah. So, would that be a success? I don't know. Yeah.
I very rarely weigh in on people's answers, but I sort of agree with you, because I've never actually, I don't even think I've said that whether I consider myself a success or not, and I don't consider myself a success. I consider myself on a journey. I consider myself a success in comparison to where I started, but there's so much more that I want to do.
I could break it down in many areas. I'll be really honest and vulnerable with you right now.
Yeah.
I have never done my own laundry in my life, and I'm 30-year-old. So define success as being able to look after yourself 100%. Fucking failure, right? However, I've pretty much made a business from nothing. I'm not rich, but I'm comfortable. Mm-hmm. I'll sit here and say I'm comfortable. I don't have to worry so much. Like, yeah. Don't get me wrong. Could you have a year of being ridiculous with your spending and you'd be back in a bad place? Yeah, I could. I'm not rich.
Yeah.
But I'm doing all right for myself. Okay, yeah. So. Do I define myself as a success in business and being 30-year-old compared to where I was at 20? Yes, I made a success of that.
Yes.
Other areas? No. I think I have a little bit of Peter Pan syndrome going on. I'm frightened of growing up, which is why I still like playing so much and being fun and having a laugh. I think I'm developed in some ways very successfully and then underdeveloped in others. So I can analyze myself and say, yeah, I'm not. There's parts, and I think that's the best thing to do.
Yeah.
to define yourself as, oh, success or a failure, that's such black and white thinking.
Yeah.
So if someone says, do you think you're successful at this? I might be able to go, yeah, I do. Do you think you're successful at that? Being able to look after yourself and do your own dishes and laundry? No. I'm a fucking idiot. So depends on what the context is, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I just like people's individual definite. That's why I added that in, because I was like, the other thing I was going to add in was either a question from the last guest, but I was like, that could completely just go off the rails and not be relevant to the topic of what we've talked about. So I added the success thing because I'm always curious, because they'll see people in front of a microphone and they'll go, well, they're clearly a success because someone's got them on a podcast, right? And it's like, what we deem as success is so vast, but we do have some sort of a degree of what most people think success is, and that's like money, fame, status, like that's what we think fame is. But in actual fact, everyone's definition is a little bit different.
Yeah.
So I'm always curious when I ask that question what people are going to say, and sometimes it's a surprise. Sometimes people who are, I mean, obviously without naming names, who've done so much with their time in life, helped so many people, and they're living comfortably or whatever, and they go, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And it's like, from the outside you'd go, really?
Well,
like,
that's why I put myself in like the male mentoring program I'm in. There's like 7-figure business owners in there. There's some 8-figure business owners in there. I want to be in a room with those people.
Yeah.
I want to be the least successful person in a room, because that means I'm in the right room. Mm-hmm. The moment you put yourself in a room, you're like, I'm a success, I'm better than everyone. You've fucking failed, because you're going to become that egotistical narcissist again who thinks you're better than everyone else. I don't want to be that guy. That's darkness. I'll watch out for that. That's not just saying me. Everyone has that within them, and you've got to be aware of that. You've got to be aware of just, temptation and your darkness and, your negative thoughts and, your own ego. I'm aware of that. So I deliberately humble myself. I deliberately put myself in rooms where the people who are doing way better than me.
Yeah.
So defining it as that, it's like, if you said, oh, business success, compared to where I want to be, absolutely not. Compared to where I want to be, absolutely not. But also I would, caveat onto that and say, am I going to let money rule my life? No, because I also know guys who have all the money in the world and are fucking miserable.
Yep.
That's not successful. If you're defining success as, oh, well, this guy's a millionaire, but his marriage is broke down, he's addicted to fucking Xanax because he can't handle his anxiety, he's got he's overweight and eats crap all day, and, how is that success? So again, I think that question needs to be, you have to define success, and when you actually have conversations with people about what success is, sometimes you can pick holes in that. Like, if success is just about money, then that's pretty sad, isn't it? But also, let's not deny it and say that it's not important.
It'd be nice to have some money, yeah.
But money gives you, money's a tool.
Gives you options to do more,
It's a tool, that's what it is. So when I said, like, before, like, I'm not rich, I'm absolutely not rich, but am I comfortable enough to, let's say, if something happened where I was like, right, I need to find £1,000 to, like, delegate this problem that I can't solve, I could do it, no problem, I wouldn't bother us. So I think defining success monetarily, basically being in a position to where you have savings where if anything went wrong within reason, like basically if your roof collapsed on your house,
could you fix it?
Could you buy a new roof? What's a new roof? I don't know, 10 grand?
No, never bought a roof.
I don't know. Could you do it, right? Maybe that's what you should be aiming for, to say, right, apart from, like, if I get sued off someone for £1 million, I don't need £1 million saved, but if my roof collapsed, if my car broke down, if this, could I fix it? That's the only amount of money you need. Anything beyond that, it's just all ego.
It's just a bonus.
Like, isn't there actually a study done that said, like, happiness doesn't actually improve after about £70,000
something
a year?
like that. There's a
salary, yeah.
Because you're not going to be. There's a level
diminished
of
returns. That's it. So apparently your life will improve up to a point. Let's say call it £70,000-80,000, where £70,000-80,000 a year, you've got more than enough money to do what you want. That's a lot of money.
Well, look at those lottery winners. They always go back to work, or they're miserable, or they blow it all, and they're like.
Let's say if you make £70,000 or £80,000 a year. As long as you're not being this materialistic arsehole who, buys 10 grand of Amazon packages a month because you need all the latest gadgets, you're like, right, I'm going to live a reasonably modest life. You can have enough disposable income to do what you want, go on holiday a couple of times a year, pay your mortgage with money left at the end of the month, and be completely fine. And if your roof caves in, you could probably find the 10-20 grand out your back pocket to pay. Right? After that, it's just more stuff.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with one of my mates, actually. And I was like, someone who makes 100 grand a year but spends 99 is no better off than a guy who makes 20 but saves 5. Yeah. It's all about your lifestyle, isn't it, really?
My belief is, personally, I'll always live beneath my means. Just because I've got the money doesn't mean I have to spend it.
Yeah.
Just because I could doesn't mean I should. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I think most people, if they're being honest with themselves, if they looked at where their money's going, spend way above their means.
I mean, that's why I don't want to turn this into a financial podcast. I'm not someone who should be taking financial advice from, but I would say this secret to my success, if we're going to define it as the small amount of success that I've had in business or financially, I live beyond my means, right?
Beyond your means?
Sorry, I lived within my means.
Right.
I didn't go beyond it, right? So I think our people of our generation, right, where most of their money's going is takeaways, drink, drugs, designer clothes, right? I don't give a fuck about designer clothes. This t-shirt, I think, was £12. These pair of jeans, I believe they are Primark jeans. These shoes, New Balance, I bought them on the sale. Like, if you look at some basic stuff at our age, right, the materialistic stuff, it costs a lot of money. Just because you make $5,000 a month, but you spend it all, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
But if you make $2,000, when I was an up-and-coming PT, it wasn't that much, maybe $2-3 a month. But I was living at home at the time, so I will admit I had that privilege of not having to pay out a rent. I was saving about $2,000 a month for about 2 years.
Yeah.
So I'll just put that in perspective. I didn't have to spend that. That set me up pretty much for business later in life. And when I did have my own bills and have to buy this and buy that and cars and, you know, rent and all that sort of stuff, I had the money. I was able to set myself up.
It goes back exactly what you said at the very beginning, is that people buy through emotion. You're not happy, you buy, you spend.
So I knew at the time, I've got an opportunity. I'm making $2-3 a month as a PT back in the day. I don't have any bills. If I just keep my nose clean for the next 2 years and I don't go crazy, I'll be all right.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I hustled in my 20s so I could relax a bit in my 30s. You know, so I do think it's the consumer mindset and the materialistic mindset that keeps people stuck financially. Because if you live within your means and you have very modest expectations around your, you know, spends, there's more than enough money. I think where people struggle with money is when they need the latest car. They need, like, I have like one experience, right? And this is when I humbled myself. Basically, 2021, started making good money. Right?
Yeah.
Good money. Business was flying. Fuck it, I'll get a new Audi. So I wanted to show off. I wanted people to see that I was successful. After about 3 months, I used to fucking hate getting in that Audi because I see the payment come out my bank account every month. First of all, I didn't even own this car. Right? I'm renting it.
Yeah.
Which basically, that's what a finance agreement is, right? And I looked at the contract, I was like, it's costing me, I think at the time, it was £380 a month for the car, and then it was like £50 for this gap insurance. So it was between £400 to £500. Put petrol on it as well, it was shit for petrol. Terrible.
Yeah.
Right? Terrible for petrol. I was spending about £500 a month on my car, right? Just often having a car. Now, by the end of the 3-year agreement, I would still owe about £19,000 on. And I was like, this is fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm just renting a lifestyle. So just because I could afford that payment, it didn't mean I didn't resent seeing that come out my bank account every month. And I was like, what could that be used to? I got rid of it and I bought my car, right?
Yeah.
And I don't have that headache now, you know? So by all that money that I saved, like, if people look at it, the latest phone, look at the state of this. This is my iPhone.
The phone case.
Like
I was looking at my phone, but
I've actually ordered a new one. Like, that's pretty bad. But I don't need the latest iPhone. This is an iPhone 11. It works fine. It works fine. I don't need the latest one.
Yeah.
Phone contracts are a scam as well.
Yeah.
Car contracts are a scam. Like, you know what people do? I would have just got the end of that Audi agreement, right? After spending £500 a month for 3 years. I got rid of it after a year. And I bought a car, right? And now I don't have the car payment.
Yep.
I saved that £500 a month. That's mine.
Yeah.
Not going to a car payment.
Agreed.
They get the end of the contract and go, oh, God, am I going to buy that car then for 19 grand? Or they'll go, or you can upgrade to the latest Audi.
Yeah.
And it's only £50 a month more than you do. Oh, go on then. And if you look at that over like 20 years, you could have literally spent about £100,000 on cars that you never owned.
Yeah.
You know, I follow a lot of Dave Ramsey's advice. Do you know Dave Ramsey?
The name rings a bell, but I don't.
He's an American guy, and the American financial system's a bit different to ours. Like, if you hear the amount of debt that they get into,
it's crazy. Yeah, it's nuts.
Crazy. Like, someone who's in £20,000 of debt in England's like, whoa, that's a lot of money. That's nothing over there. They're in
hundreds of
thousands. They're in 200,000s. They're leaving university. Like, yeah, I've got $250,000 in student loan debt. I'm like, what? Like, anyway, it's different. So it's a bit different. But he has this formula, like, basically that you follow. I can't remember what it's called actually, but the debt snowball method he calls it. Where if you're in debt, anyway, I'm not getting into it. Watch his videos, but I watch a lot of his stuff, and the whole principle is your number one wealth building tool is your income. And if you can say, right, this is what I get paid. let's say it's £2,000 a month.
Yeah.
My bills are £1,500. You don't get paid £2,000 a month. You get paid £500.
Yeah.
Because minus your bills, that's what's left. I've looked at that for
Yeah.
years now. Since 2021, I stopped being stupid with my money because what I made, I would just spend. Right.
Yeah.
Since then, I've been a lot better. Basically, whatever I get paid, I go, what's all of the bills, including business bills, personal bills, everything I have to pay out, which is quite a lot, minus what I make. That's what's left.
Yeah.
That's my play money. I pay myself a very modest salary in my own business, just enough to get by.
Yep.
The rest gets saved.
That's a good plan. I'm the same.
Anyone can build wealth doing that because you're just letting your income do the job. But when you go, I've got £500 a month spare, what can I buy it? What can I spend it on?
Yeah.
Just because you've got it spared doesn't mean you can buy that. If you're living month to month, it doesn't matter how much money you make because you're spending it.
Yeah.
You know, so just try and be a little bit modest. You don't have to have the latest car. You don't have to have the latest gadgets.
Yeah.
I think designer clothes are a lot of people. Like if
my brother buys Jordans,
I'm
like, bro, it's like £120 for some shoes, man.
I'm ranting now, right? But here, if your car is worth more than your yearly salary, you've got your priorities wrong.
Yeah.
if you've got more money in your wardrobe than you do in your bank account, you've got more priorities wrong. So many people have got the Gucci belts, have got the designer clothes, have got the Canada Goose jackets, but they couldn't pull £500 out of the account and pay a bill.
Mate, you know what? I didn't know how much Canada Goose was, and I was
£800 jacket.
It's fucking extra. I looked at them because where was I? I was in Harvey. Was it Harvey Nichols or something? And I was like, how much actually are these? Because I see these quite regularly popping around. And I had a look, and I was like,
mad.
bro, like, why would you pay that? It's ridiculous. I mean, it's funny. I've got a Google Pixel 8a as my phone, right? And I went in and I think I had the 6 beforehand, and the battery had expanded the phone, so the screen was basically about to fall off. And the guys that comes out with like the 9s or whatever is out at the minute, and he's giving off the Pixel watch, and I'm like, how much is all that? And he's like, I'll be like 65 a month or something. I was like, get rid of the watch. He was like, okay, it's like 54. I'm like, downgrade. I was like, downgrade. This guy fucking hated me because he's like obviously trying to flog like much money.
Monthly pay. This is what Dave Ramsey says. He says people don't ask whether they can afford it. They ask what's the monthly payment. Doesn't necessarily mean you can afford it. I can afford that Audi, but I had no business getting a £35,000 car. What the hell am I doing?
And there's no need for it.
I didn't have £35,000 in savings. I couldn't afford to drop that on a one. I had nowhere near that.
My car was £1,000 and all the tyres have fallen to bits, but it gets me to work, so it's fine. You know, I can get anywhere I need to be, and it's fine.
It's just having that attitude of like, you know, your income's so important.
Yeah.
If you're not protecting your income because your lifestyle goes beyond it, like you're not future proofing yourself. Like that's what I mentioned before about like what's keeping people in a scarcity mindset. It's 100% the financial stuff. Like the bills have gone up astronomically in the last couple of years. Like it's actually quite scary how much bills are now. Like you can't kind of get a mortgage really for less than £1,000 a month now. That's a lot of money. You know what I mean? Long gone are the days when you get a 5% mortgage and have it's 270 quid. Like my mum and dad's mortgage for the family home for years, it was like 300 quid. Like you couldn't even mortgage a bloody toaster for that now. Like the cost of living crisis is a real thing. So your income matters more than ever now. Be smart with it. That's all I'll say. I'm not a financial expert, but having enough money sitting there for a rainy day, it takes the sting out of life a little bit.
Yeah,
my car could break down, I'd be fucking raging. It happened last year actually. I had to buy a new engine. It's like $3,000.
Oof.
I resented every second of having to hand that money over.
Yeah,
but I was like, I'm so glad I didn't spend loads of money on trainers.
Yes.
Because I could if I wanted to, and I didn't. I'm so glad I had that £3,000 sitting there. It's not necessarily a lot well, it is a lot of money. Yeah, it's not life-changing money, but just being able to go, right, chunk. Yeah. I hate this, but fuck's sake, right, sort it out. Yeah. That can solve so many problems. Yeah. Now imagine if your car breaks down, you own your car, you don't have enough money to be able to buy a new one, and you've got to fix it. What then? You get a loan out. You get a credit card that's got 29% APR. Before you know it, you can't even pay off the interest. Yeah. In 10 years' time, that £3,000 loan is now £9,000. You're fucked. That is the system. So by being smart with your money, in the case of an emergency, like Dave Ramsey says, have an emergency fund, which basically should be 3 to 6 months worth of bills. 3 to 6 months worth of bills. That means that if you lost your job right now, you'd be okay for 3 to 6 months. Time to panic after that. But that's what you should have. So that's what I live my life by. I don't let my bank account deplete beyond about 6 months worth of bills.
Yeah. Well, you obviously mentioned there like the stuff about the obviously the UK, because obviously we can't speak for other countries other than what we
Yeah.
see online and stuff like that. A friend of mine wants to move to Hungary or Uruguay because he's like, A, it's fine to live there, it's not too high, and no one's going to invade.
Yeah.
He wants to get out of the UK. So I'm like, where do you think we're going wrong with like the UK? Where do you think the UK has gone wrong? Is there something deeper under the surface, or are we just fucked now?
We're locked in that consumer mindset. That's what I said. You know, like big brands, they don't target, like Gucci, shall I say, they don't target rich people. You know, like people like Kim Kardashian. She gets paid £1 million and given her Gucci stuff for free to post on Instagram. It's working class and middle class people who are addicted to these brands because they're trying to fill a void. So there's a lot of psychology stuff on this, consumer psychology. It's very similar to why people turn to food for comfort or why people fall into addictions. Like shopping is an addiction for a lot of people. It's another coping mechanism. So when we lack meaning and purpose in our life, when we lack a sense of value, we know who we are, well, we're not playing, we don't have things in my life that we enjoy, we'll look for quick fixes. You know, so that the whole financial crisis people find themselves in, it is often just living beyond their means. Why? Because they're trying to fill a void. So that's, you know, I think the UK will live in a consumer culture.
Yeah.
Just look at all the adverts right now. Every holiday is incentivized to spend money.
I'm sick of being advertised too. I'm sick of it.
And that's what these were invented. You think social media was invented to connect with? No. It was invented to fucking sell with shit faster than ever before. That's what it was invented for.
All you accepting your cookies and stuff, they know.
Yeah. You know, so like, we've got it coming from all angles right now. Whether, like you said, whether it's all done by design or whether it was things that were already there, then people just took advantage of it. I think it's probably a bit of both.
Yeah.
But yeah, like one of your number one things to stay like just safer in this crazy world right now, navigating through it, is just be a little bit smarter with your money. You know, have a budget, like figure out what you make, know what your bills are, and then say, I need to like live beyond. Like I don't have to get into numbers, right? But I know after all my bills are paid with what I pay myself, I've got £700 a month. That's my play money.
Yeah.
If something costs, I don't buy it. That's got to get my petrol. It's got to get my food. If I wanted to take my girlfriend out for a coffee, a bite to eat. If I want, I normally buy myself a little something like a little £100 this.
Yeah.
I've got a budget on £700. After bills, after everything else, I've got 700 quid. I can't go crazy.
Yeah.
I can't buy loads of stuff. I can't buy loads of designer clothes. £700 is not really a lot of money, but that's what I've figured out is it works for me.
Yeah.
It's enough of a disposable income to live what I want to live by, but not, you know, eat into the bank or get into debt.
It's not excessive. Yeah, absolutely.
So I've been in debt before, and it's not nice.
No, I'm grateful to say I've never been in debt actually. So
Good lad, don't get one.
Yay.
I got offered a credit card after university. Didn't have a job. 12 grand. I put like 6 grand on it. And do you know what I didn't even realise? When you're paying off monthly, you're not paying off the debt. You're paying off the interest.
Yeah.
So you know that minimum payment? Say, I only have to pay £60. That's the interest.
Yeah.
The money. So after about a year, because it wasn't until I tried to get a mortgage a few years ago, I decided not to get it. I'm just renting at the minute. It's easier. They're like, oh, you can't apply because you've got this debt. I was like, oh, no problem. And I looked and I was like, hang on, I thought I've been paying that off. No, it actually went up. I'd been paying off the minimum for a year, and I didn't even know anything about credit cards. And so what I ended up doing, took the money out of my savings, paid it off.
And fucked it off.
I've never got, well, I'll tell a lie, I do have about £80 on a credit card at the minute, but if I ever need to make special purchases online that are more protected, I use the card.
Yes, that's what I think it should be used for.
I don't get into debt now. No way.
Yeah.
I let that rack up to like £5,000, £6,000. That was not fun to know that. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice, man. So tell everyone where they can follow you, where they can work with you if they want to, and anything else that you've got coming up they might want to share.
Yeah. Well, even though we hardly spoke about it today, you know, obviously my bread and butter is working on people with their mindset, overcoming emotional eating, disordered eating habits. I'm definitely, I'm going to get you to hold me accountable. I'm going to put more stuff on YouTube right now. I've got a lot of good
content. We spoke about that the other day.
Got a lot of good things to say on YouTube. I've got all of my speaking gigs that I've done. I've got a lot of content I've recorded. So I'm going to start being more active on YouTube. So I believe I am the emotional eating coach Sam on YouTube. Check me out. I've got about 300 subscribers. Got some stuff on there. Facebook is Sam Gibson Emotional Eating Coach. Instagram is Sam Gibson Limitless. Which is my old handle. I haven't really changed that. So yeah, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. I'm going to be more active on there. That is where to find me. And I'm also writing a book right now. It's actually very close to being done.
Do we have a title, or are we not sharing that yet? Or
I don't.
That's okay.
I've got an idea, but I'm not going to say it because if I change my mind, I'll just sound like an idiot, won't I?
Not necessarily, no, but we'll let you off for that. Yeah, that's fine. Nice.
It's all about how to overcome binge eating, basically. I think it's going to be very good. I think it's going to be the best book written on overcoming binge eating, and that's me really blow my own trumpet. But I think it's going to be the best book written in this country.
Nice.
Overcoming that. I don't think there's anyone who's going to say the things I've been saying. I've researched it. There's a couple of books out there that's singing from similar hinge sheets, but I don't think anyone has the experience of working with about 2,000 people over the last 10 years on their eating habits. I'm so grateful for the amount of people I've worked with, because it's given me real life like experiences. I feel like I've been in a 10-year study where I've been like just analysing.
So that's what it is. Well,
like,
it's
It's just like through experience, through lived experience, I've seen so many things, and it's been so eye-opening. So it's basically, that book is going to be a finding of everything I've learned from the last 10 years of overcoming my own disordered eating habits and helping 2,000 people lose weight, overcome emotional eating, overcome eating disorders themselves in my own business. So it's like a summary of my life so far. All the things I've learned, it's going to be in that book. It's going to be
nice.
It's going to be very good, I think.
I'm excited for my signed copy, mate.
100%.
Write something nice in it as well.
I'm going to have to be pushing it. You know, I've talked about humbling myself before, but also one of the things I need to do is like put myself out there a little bit. I don't think I shout about myself enough. You know, not in that way. So I'm going to really try hard to market that book best I can, get it out there, speak more about it, give it away to people. Yeah. You know, so yeah, I'll certainly be getting you to push it for us.
Nice, man. Absolutely, I will be sharing it as well. So obviously, like we said, Sam does have another episode on the show. So go back and listen to that if you want to hear more of Sam's story and more of what he does in the emotional eating world, because it's fantastic as well. So, and obviously I've seen Sam speak 3 times now, I think. And do you know what I love about your style of speaking? It's so insightful, and I can't I sometimes, like, I remember this when I did the first recording with you. I was like forgetting to ask questions because I was like so engrossed in what you were saying and how you were saying. I was like, I don't know, you've just got a captivating way of speaking, mate.
Yeah, appreciate
that. As always, guys, please leave a 5-star review. No 4 stars, right, Sam?
5 stars.
5 stars all the way. 5 stars all the way. It really does help push this show to new audiences and helps other people find it. So until the next episode, guys, take care, and I'll see you very soon.